We are getting into GSL Code A. Starting off on Persephone for this first best of 3. In the top left, it is SOS. And on the bottom left, it is Cure. And I must have been playing. Alright, so TVP to start things off. Cure, one of the best TVPers. I think his peak was a while ago, but he's still pretty damn good at it. And we do need someone to sort of light the way, as some other Terran players are having a little bit of trouble versus Protoss. But to be fair, most of the Protoss aren't SOS. Now that's a good and a bad thing, I suppose. The good thing is that SOS is less likely to do something totally solid, macro, the thing that a lot of Terran players are suffering against right now. The kind of safe blink opener, 2-gate or 3-gate, into the third base, into the Colossus, into the push. That is what is currently a very troublesome point for some Terran players. SOS might do it, of course, because it is a perfectly typical fine way to play, but it is SOS, and when it comes to typical fine ways of playing, he tends to not like that so much. I mean, I don't think he's gonna proxy a Nexus, but maybe he will do some other stuff. Maybe he will bring out an old-fashioned 4-gate. Maybe he will do a 2-base storm charge. Maybe he will maybe even go like mass ground, like no Colossus, like some of the older styles. But I really couldn't tell you what he would do. Saw very little of him in the GSL qualifier. He actually got through, I'd say fairly quickly, and also off of a couple of PvPs, I believe. So we didn't really get to see a lot of this. You know, in PvP, he did play some old school styles. So that might be an indication that he will then do the same in other matchups, but I wouldn't automatically say that. So yeah, it's SOS, you know. Take the good with the bad. You take the wackiness with some of the good macro fundamentals, and you see what you get. But he did kind of, you know, not retire as in, hey, I'm retiring, but he did go to the military. He did come back. He did play. But then as far as his full-time status in StarCraft 2 goes, that has been on and off. At least as much as we can see. You know, if he's practicing on ladder 12 hours a day, we don't get to see that, but he does not perform in as many tournaments as these other guys, like Cure, for instance, and Cure doesn't even play in all of them, but still we see him more often. So that also has to be a factor here. At the end of the day, I do believe that Cure is favored. I think that even if SOS does the very standard thing and gets into a good position on 3 bases with a couple of Colossus, I don't think he'll be as good as the other Protosses we see when they get to that point. Or even up to that point, actually. Like, I guess I'm kind of doubting that he will even get up to a secure, lickety-split, saturated 3-base onto his technology, onto his upgrades. I'm guessing Cure will find some amount of damage before that. Not because Terrans typically do, which actually is kind of the problem. They haven't really been finding a lot of damage in any of these early game, you know, medevac drops or some cyclones or whatever. It hasn't been happening, but this is interesting. Those 3 gateways did come down really quickly, notably before the Robo. So you don't get a War Prism here, and also there's no Twilight Council. So he is just straight up 3-gating. That is very interesting. That is no blink, no upgrades, nothing beyond this. But here it comes. No bunker made. Cure's probably like, what the hell is this? It hits before even this 4-minute medevac here, which is really quite quick and would usually scout anything on 2 bases, honestly. Except this 3-gate. So it's not quite the old-fashioned 4-gate of old on 1 base, which pretty much sucks, but it does rely quite a bit on the surprise factor. And as far as that goes, it's not bad, but he didn't get up into the main base, and that's kind of what he needed to do. Also had to use his reinforcing warpins to defend against the medevac drop, which is still alive up in the corner. So far, it's an almost equal number of exchanges. Cyclone will go down, though. A little maybe overly aggressive there, but a tank is on the way, as well as a Banshee. This is why Kier probably thought, worst case scenario, he was going to lose the Cyclone, but only after, like, successfully dealing a lot of damage and buying that time for some stronger units. And this might not be enough if we were facing, a 4-gate with Blink or a 4-gate with a Warp Prism, because then you can do some fancy footwork and take out a tank and a Banshee without Cloak, probably, if you had, 6 Stalkers on the front lines, again, either with Blink or with a Warp Prism, kind of giving you a pseudo-Blink. But we don't have any of that. And at least one of the Warp-ins had to go back at home. Kira knows this, knows that there won't be a surplus of units in the natural, and felt really quite safe doing what he did to get his natural back up and running as fast as possible. Because I do imagine there are some other Terran players, probably not of Kira's caliber, but he's faced maybe on ladder, SOS that is, that would take that initial damage, miss micro the medevac to do no return damage, and then also be incredibly scared of the attack for the other, another 60 seconds at least. Especially because if they're not doing anything with a medevac, then maybe the Warpins will have to go back at home. I'm sure that has happened. This has snowballed. But in this case, Kira handled it like an absolute pro, which, he is. So, medevac is still alive. You kind of got the gist of what the build was, right? Just with everything combined together, you knew that it was a late technology build. So again, that fear that would usually come with, like, okay, they did this, but then what about the next thing? That's not really there immediately. The next thing apparently is going to be a Warp Prism, but you got tanks positioned. You're getting to a healthy number of Marines. It does look like he was a little afraid of either Blink as a follow-up, or a Warp Prism. Either way, this wall here ensures that if you dip in to attack the tank, or the tank's plural, you can't easily dip back out, right? So usually you blink in and then you walk away. You can't do that with the wall. But kind of the same with the Warp Prism, I guess, just in case the Warp Prism is being attacked. You would have to actually keep that there to bring any units back home. So the wall can be a downside in some situations, which is why you don't always do a wall as a Terran player. But in this case, I think it's very safe. A couple supply blocks I have noticed from Kira. His build has obviously been messed up to a certain degree, but we'll pretend we don't notice. Storm is on the way. Charge as well. SOS is going into, let's call it a 2-base charge Storm. Obviously, off the back of that 3 gates, it's a little bit different than what we saw Hero doing on the Monday Weekly, but getting the 3rd base as well. This is not something that Kira, I think, is quite aware of. Again, only thing he's seen is Twilight Council and the Robo, so that could be Blink, for sure, but we know that it's Charge. And he hasn't seen the Warp-ins either to say, okay, you don't have that many Stalkers. Kira, though, doesn't have to worry about it right now. He does have to worry about it eventually. He will not enjoy walking his army face first into prepared storms without any knowledge whatsoever. So that's a little concerning. It looks like he made sure to get the couple of Vikings because maybe he saw that a Warp Prism had popped out or guessed that it would. In this case, it is around. And actually, 2 Vikings would be something that you get against a Storm Warp Prism as well. Usually, it's a decision, as always, to get a certain number of medevacs before you get into a certain number of Vikings. But in this case, those 2 Vikings will actually have some, staying power. And, if they didn't go flying off... Wait, where the hell did they go? Okay. If they didn't go flying off, I thought I saw them fly to the north, and maybe they would have caught the Warp Prism, but they're going to catch it anyway, actually. There you go. I saw them fly off to the left, and I guess they did turn around, and SOS had no idea that Vikings would be made this early. Most of the time, you're going to get to 4 medevacs first before producing anything else, so can't really blame SOS, and he had already taken some damage, so the recall was not going to be timely. Proxy Pylon gets taken down. Cure is just cleaning up some loose ends, really, but taking out that Warp Prism without taking really any storm damage. They got the Warp Prism and the 2 High Templars. Not the SOS follow-up that SOS wanted. Nope. 4th base is on the way for him at the very least, but it's going to take a while before the economy is going to kick in, and Cure has remained untouched since that very beginning. He did lose some SCVs, but he dealt equivalent damage, and I think he does still have to worry a little bit about storms, but that's a big Terran army. A couple of Banshees as well are going to target down the High Templars. There is a significant lack of Blink Stalkers here, or, well, not Blink, so Stalkers here, and it's because of the opener, right? You don't want to make Stalkers if you're trying to go into charge Storm. So the Banshees have this weird moment where they're better than they usually are in the mid-game. Raven also with an anti-armament looking up out a lot against what you know is going to be a surplus of charge lots, but without an armor upgrade, so they're already a little vulnerable anyway. This isn't the first time we've seen a Protoss player go attack over armor, even while doing this composition, but that is, I mean, the trade-off is now the Zealots aren't as tanky, and they're especially not tanky if they get anti-armor missiled. Even an auto turret does help because it has such high threat. Zealots will go ahead and just swarm over the auto turret before it does anything else. This is a wonderful setup. The only thing missing for Cure are a couple of energized medevacs. As you can see, there are no more medevacs aside from those two, and they are out of juice. I think a Banshee just got dragged into the fight, but War Prism is setting up a little bit of a run by. I do like when Protoss players remake that War Prism. Cure, though, I mean, he doesn't even know about it, but he's also not, you know, he doesn't have to be worried about it. Like, his army is pulling back at such a amazing time. The Zealots really shouldn't do that much damage. Another benefit to going for a wall here, yeah, is that occasionally it can help you against these Zealot run-bys, although you can see not often because you're not paying attention to raise the depots. The Ghosts will not be able to take care of it on their own. Yeah, a couple of units are left behind. Cure doesn't really want to let up on SOS. You know, withdrawing and collecting yourself, particularly when you are out of medevac energy, probably a wise move. And probably knowing that there would be some type of Zealot run by to try and interfere with them. He's going to make sure that all his ducks are in a row, but he's still going to be maxed out with some good upgrades against an opponent who is still reliant on Storm. That second Colossus is almost out, so we're getting to something a little more dependable. But with EMPs being out and numerous, the Storms, theoretically, they won't even happen. And then the Colossus are dependable, but we know what a fully maxed out Terran army can look like against even a fully maxed out Protoss one. As the Protoss army, if it gets concave, it gets surrounded, it actually does not hold up to it. There has to be a little more back and forth on the Protoss side. Or you have to have some really good positioning, like, again, not being surrounded. Linear Colossus, if you use this choke, where the hell is the Colossus, by the way? I know he has one Colossus, but it is, it's lazy. Okay, the rounded one is the one that's coming over here. Two Colossus would have been very helpful on the front lines. Fortunately, those EMPs did not take out every last Storm. That might keep SOS alive, or maybe not. It probably would have if both Colossus were brought over here as fast as possible. The first Colossus should have been here from the very beginning. And yeah, maybe it gets targeted by the tanks probably, but it's still something to add on here. And considering how little Cure is left over with, I do wonder how much that could have impacted the fight. Second Colossus once again coming in, but we're just running out of fodder units. The tanks have been taken out, which means the Colossus can try and abuse the range, but actually the Vikings are still around, so they're taking them out anyway. And there is nothing on the ground to protect them. So Cure, he is going to take the 1-0. SOS trying something a little bit different with that opener. That's nice, but it really didn't look that important. You know, like SOS surprised Cure for sure. And Cure handled it like it was a simple thing. Game 2 here on Tokamak. In the bottom left, it is SOS. In the top right, it is Cure. Cure showing his comfortability in the matchup. Is really the handling of that first attack. It just screamed comfortable and confident to me. From the cool-headedness to just let that natural go for a couple of seconds, make sure your main didn't get breached, to controlling your and microing your medevac on the other side, and then the confidence to bust down the ramp, which wasn't really a bust, you know, there wasn't that many units, but still, to actually go down the ramp and take your natural back really as soon as possible. Because if you do wait an extra 30 seconds, it's still a lot in terms of pro gamer time. And I'm sure there are, again, as I said, I'm sure there's tons of other Terrans on the ladder that probably waited even longer than that to actually take their natural back. And all they're thinking is, well, at least I didn't take any more damage. But that time where the natural doesn't get back up and running and saturated, or you're not producing 2 SCVs at a time, or you're not, you know, you're mule dropping your main and it's getting mined out faster, blah, 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 is time that SOS is trying to take to get that higher technology, as well as to get his own economy up. And again, 30 seconds is such a big deal when it comes to that. There's a lot you can fit in if you think that you have the time. It's almost like the Zerg idea. Of course, Protoss don't have larvae, where they can just simply choose to use 10 larvae to use as drones, but it can be somewhat of a similar idea for any race, actually, which is just how long can I get away with a bit of greed? when they're not attacking me or they're recovering from an attack that I did. And SOS was, I think, actually doing an admirable job of trying to kind of recover from that opener, because I don't think it favored him at the end of the day. Not with the super delayed technology and the delayed economy. Even though he did delay cures a little bit, he took that probe damage as well. But anyway, SOS going to try something a little bit different. I enjoyed the idea of it because it was such an odd attack to see. You know, Cure wasn't going for a lot of scouting prior to that medevac, because generally you don't have to. You know, if a Reaper is made and it runs around, then it could pick up on all the signs that this is a 3-gate, no technology, of course. But if you are successfully able to wall it off your main base, then it's less likely to do that. And then all it sees is actually kind of a typical setup, although maybe a bit faster on those gateways. And it just misses, you know, the lack of Twilight Council and Robo. Or you just don't go for a Reaper, you know, and if that happens, well then yeah, you're just going to not be scouted at all. And it's such a surprising timing, because for the Terran side of things, you know, to skip that Reaper can be seen as totally okay, because those early game attacks, which by the way SOS is doing again here, they don't happen that often. Now, they might not happen that often because they're not good, but whatever. But they really don't happen that often. And so what you're usually scared of, if you are believing that your opponent is going to take a natural, which most people do nowadays, what you're really worried about is more like after 4.5 minutes or 5 minutes. And then your, you know, factory expand medevac drop is going to see whatever's happening there for sure. Even your 2-base medevac drop is going to come in around 5 minutes and see, for instance, a 2-base Dark Shrine. But these attacks that SOS are doing are basically abusing Cure, not going for a Reaper, not going for an SCV Scout. Not that an SCV Scout, again, would be able to scout exactly this, but and just, you know, depending on a little bit later of an attack to also get that scouting. These Hellions are going to see, again, a pretty typical setup on the front. This could very much look like it's a 2-gate expand build, if the Hellions even bother to check, which, by the way, they aren't. Too bad, too, because if they really wanted to do something useful, they could be patrolling around other places. Proxy Robo 3-gate... No, 3-gate with 3rd gate on the way. Is very, very dedicated, but it has so much more killing potential, I think, than the last build that we saw. So that's a trade-off, right? I mean, but if it works, it works. It works pretty damn well. And it does look like it's kind of working. Already busting open the main base. Widowmine drop is a little scary. SOS nearly lost more probes than he should have. Medevac getting injured by its own Widowmine is less than ideal. Cure is trying to calmly respond to this, but he's also trying to get as much damage as possible with the Widowmine. Stalkers are an okay grab usually, but in this case, I mean, maybe he needed to actually grab those 10+ probes and stop SOS from being able to reinforce. Once again, we got a Banshee that is surprisingly useful. There are just not that many units here for SOS, so 1 Banshee in the sky against 2 things that can attack up. Now 1 thing that is basically dead. That is very, very useful. Cure going for this starport technology most of the time, not to defend, right? But to be a little bit of a surprise to the Protoss player, actually, because it's not usually this common to see a Banshee. But he also might have planned to go for a Raven and then just realized what was up and then got a Banshee, which makes a lot of sense. And then he might still get a Raven if this was to be over and done with, but as it is a proxy Robo, you really have to be careful in assuming that they're going to give up on the attack. Total damage done. 10 SCVs were killed, a Cyclone, the Widowmines, obviously, and the Hellions. But 2 Immortals also went down and 5 probes, too. I mean, this is totally recoverable for Cure, as he has gotten his 2 bases up. His medevac even is able to return home. He didn't grab Cloak, though. Not that Cloak would necessarily be good. But, you know, if there wasn't an Observer, that would be a little more there for the Banshee to do. Unfortunately, now the Banshee can be focus fired, which it is. The SCV repair actually was not good. I thought that's what he was going to repair, but it looks like he went for the tank. Some SCVs did, and the rest of the SCVs kind of got pushed aside by the Marines or something like that, because I thought his mass repair might do the trick to save the Banshee. It did not. And now that is a lot of Protoss army in the natural. A tank on the high ground not able to reach to save it. Now the command center even under fire, under pressure, might go down. Oh my god, it goes down. He didn't lift it. If he lifted it, it actually looked like it went down. The 4 Stalkers was not enough DPS, but the Immortal was. And, well, that is game, actually. I think if he saves the command center, this is still pretty up in the air, even though it doesn't look that pretty for the Terran player. But now, yeah, and Kira's desperate to find counter damage, which is why he pushes out here. He knows he's dead. He knows that losing the command center was far too much. So, I think we're going to see a tap out. Little Warp Prism micro. A little fancy. Kira doesn't actually tap out, but I mean, what else can he really do here? There's no surprises. All the units he's making right now, too, are kind of easily counterable. Now that you know what they are, and you're going to have time to actually produce the right units, they are something you can counter. Warp Prism, Immortal against the tanks, and any number of Stalker Warp Pins with an Observer made in case they do go for Cloak against the Banshees, right? Yeah, this is game. I'm a little surprised that Kira wants to stay in for so long. If he was on 2 bases, I would understand it. Does he think that SOS is on 1 base? No. I don't know. Warp Prism does go down alongside an Immortal, but Kira's at 20 workers, 1 command center versus SOS going on to 3 bases, 45 probes. He doesn't have to go to that 3rd base, so you could say that's a little much, but I don't think it matters. Kira may be shaking his head in disbelief that he got cheesed. It's like, what the fuck? But I do not see a way back in for him. And they should confirm it. If there's any doubts. Okay, there it is. GG's. GG's. Maybe there was a chance that SOS couldn't afford a big army. Maybe he was really only working off of 2 Immortals. Clearly not. Clearly not. So SOS does strike back. Not going to get 2-0'd here to start things off. And his return to GSL. In the top left of now Maganatha, we have SOS. And in the bottom right, it is Kira. So Kira, he deals with the surprise early attack in the first game, absolutely no problem. But I think it was a less than dedicated attack. I mean, it significantly delayed your technology as a Protoss player. And it did delay your economy, too. But I would still say it's less dedicated than a proxy robo gateway. It is a significant investment putting the high technology building out on the map. And then it's also not one that I think really helps you in that much as the game goes on. I mean, it should be killed, first of all. So obviously, if you get to a Colossus, then thank God the Robo was there. But it should be killed, first of all. But then also, the time of which the Immortal Warp Prism can work, it does fade off. You know, if they are like, oh shit, okay, I've handled this. Now I'm going to get a Viking, or I'm going to get my Banshees back at home. Like, you're trying to find that desperate attack with the Immortal in the Warp Prism. It does stop. There's kind of a hard drop-off point, I guess, is what I'm saying. Where the proxy gateways, you know, they can kind of be used, you know, more of like, well, I'm poking you and I'm kind of scouting you and you're not really going to be able to chase after me and I'm going to get all this back at home. Where the Immortals, it just feels so dedicated because they are so expensive. And once the Warp Prism has kind of been shooed away and the 2 base are back up, I mean, it probably look a little similar actually to that first game. But I'd say a little more investment in the second game with a little more of that potential reward. And absolutely was rewarded because it was a complete surprise. Kira, he's not getting the ultimate scouting Terran game going. And after dealing with the first game like he did, he probably figured he didn't need to. You know, he is doing some scouting with the Hellions patrolling, and again, counting on that medevac to get some type of scout. But very clearly, SOS is trying to find these builds that just hit that right timing where you don't get your assumed scouts, or however you want to call it. You know, your planned scouts, I guess. You know you're going to get the medevac in there and eventually scout. Well, I'm going to hit you before that happens. And Kira could change, which he already has. Kira is going to go for a Reaper, first of all, so that's already a big change. SOS could theoretically still hide something, which seems to be his plan. Just because that wall is in the main base, and eventually the 2 Adepts in the Natural will be able to stop that Reaper from ever even trying to suicide in. But the Reaper, even if it gets pushed away and it says, okay, I guess I can't scout it directly, it can still go and scout. You know, and that would be the best use of it if you really are not going to get into the main. Go scout all the corners of the map. Now, it's a huge map. You know, it's not guaranteed you're going to scout whatever the hell SOS is trying to do, which we're still waiting on. It does look like it's going to be this proxy 3 gateways again. But you could at least try. That's what I thought he was going to do anyway. Hellion is on the way as well, and he actually might be Okay. I was going to say, he might be waiting to get the combination Reaper Hellion. But the Reaper manages to just get in anyway. And that is good enough. That was not supposed to happen, actually. That Adept needs to be a little bit chunkier. That failed. That absolutely failed. And the second Adept being in the main, I think, is also a mistake. Had it not popped out? Or no, it definitely was there. I'm not sure why there weren't 2 Adepts in the natural, but I guess it's 3-shot anyway, so the Reaper might still have gotten in. Regardless, that wasn't supposed to happen. The Reaper scouts how significantly late the Twilight Council is. It sees all 3 gateways done, and it should figure out what it is. It's the proxy again. You know, this proxy isn't going to be with Stalkers, so it's a little less about that frontal push. But Cure had already built a bunker, which I think is the other thing you can do to blind improve your game versus a known cheeser. Get a Reaper, get a Hellion, sure, get a bunker. And that might not always save you, of course, but it's the first step to it. And so these Adepts, like I said, they're not about busting necessarily. They're trying to be a little more clever than that, but they did just run into the natural. The Widowmine didn't go off, and so I guess that's why he thought he could take on the Marines, but Cure was right. Cure was right. He looked at the situation and said, well, my Marines are going to get healed a little bit. I think I'm going to win this fight, and he took it, and so did SOS. And SOS didn't have to, actually. He could have probably tried to run around a little bit more and shade out, but at that point, then, what are the Adepts really doing? Hoping that you don't raise the depot, because they're just going to get more units, and your Adepts are going to get more useless as the game goes on. So probably just making a last-second decision to say, okay, I guess I'm going to trade with your Marines. But that is less than ideal. Losing a bunch of gas units for a bunch of, very replaceable, reactored mineral units. Less than ideal. This is not it for SOS. Here, just a couple of improvements that didn't actually end up saving him, to be honest. Well, I don't actually think he did. If he had done the build he did without a bunker and without actually getting the scout, he still wins that fight. Neither one of those things contributed to the Adept fight. I guess it's more possible his Marines weren't stacked together, maybe they were split up for some reason, or maybe he's not paying attention to the depot raise. But yeah, that's the Adept opener has not worked. Now he's going to try and do an actual bust, just building nothing but Stalkers here. Tank, not refocus fire. That was actually really nice. So the Adepts, one goes here, so that maybe it's the one that catches the attention. One goes over here, so it does catch the attention of the tank. The one here, if it was actually targeted by the tank, could have also contributed to some damage on the SCVs that are pulled from the for the repair. But anyways, one of them did annoy the tank enough that it focused purely on that, and that's what SOS wanted to happen. Unfortunately, the rest of what he wanted to have happen did not. So yeah, I got a tank, but second tank already replaces it. Bunker is still up and running. Stalkers without... No, they do have Blink, actually. But still, Stalkers without a Warp Prism, they're not as scary mobile as usual. If this was a 4-gate Warp Prism, then you have to worry about 2 different attack points, kind of even 3 to a degree. Your front, then here, and then maybe even here. And then you're starting to lose SCVs because you don't have enough tanks to spread around, or maybe your barracks weren't well placed, although in this case they very much are well placed, very nicely protected upgrades. So this is not as scary. At the very least, SOS has a 3 base up. At the very least, it's actually pretty good. He has 3 bases up. He has Blink. He has Charge now. He is going to get to an upgrade. This doesn't look like the worst case scenario, but everything SOS tried has failed, and he has delayed that important technology leap, which is getting to Colossus. And if you're not going to get to Colossus, if you're going to play this mass ground gateway game, which we've seen in some previous metas, what you need for that is a really good economy. And that's what would be missing. Cure is ready to go literally right now. Stim's done, Combat Shields is on the way, he's got his own +1 as well, and a great army composition. And SOS is only now getting to his 4th base. He's not going to have this incredible surplus of Zealots. And so that's where I'm really concerned. You either need like this gigantic army, or you need some AoE technology. And SOS does not have either one. He's trying to get to one of those, but it's going to be very difficult. Cure's going to be sharking around for a good attack. You know, and the Zealots, they might not even get that good of a concave. Although here they would, but there are also a couple of Widow Mines, and they still kind of go single file through these Stalkers. Cure, I think he's seen that the intention of the 4th base, so he's going to go ahead and redirect his attack over there. And the tank anchoring this, and Widow Mines helping out as well. The 4th base does have to be canceled. It was killed instead. Zealots do swarm the tank, but in doing so, kind of open themselves up to the bio, killing them, the Widow Mine splashing on them, and without the Zealots, the Stalkers absolutely melt here. This was not good enough, particularly with the killed Nexus. SOS does seem a little out of luck. Cure's on his own 3 bases, dropping down mules, tons of production. His own 1-1 upgrade, actually about to finish. He's going to have an upgrade lead over his opponent. SOS does not yet have his Colossus, which would maybe save him. I don't think it would, but it would be better than nothing. Stalker's sharking around, just trying to get an idea of what the army's planning on doing. Cure, he doesn't really have to do anything fancy right now. You know, if he really didn't think he could win here, maybe he picks up a couple of units and drops, and maybe SOS gets an opportunity to catch that, but you don't have to be fancy in the situation. In brute force terms, Cure wins. So he is just going to continue brute forcing. And SOS doesn't have nearly as much of a defender's advantage as you would like. His 4th base is actually quite far away, and while a shield battery was finally made to accommodate it, it's still not the best position to have to run all the way over here, and, you know, if they're attacking from that direction, and then chase them back, and then, yeah, worry about the potential of a drop. You know, the drop could actually be perfect for Cure right now if he wanted to, because SOS wouldn't have enough army to spread around. The downside would be if they got caught by the Stalkers, right? Then it's just kind of wasted, but brute force would work. The concave opportunity as well. Colossus does get focus fired. Not going to go down, though, thanks to those shield batteries. Cure has a 60 supply lead. A Mortal Shield just got popped. Shield batteries are out of juice. Recharge is available, but we're not using it. I assume he knows about recharge. I'm going to assume that. Can a mine go inside a bunker? No. Only bio units can. 2 medevacs are floating over to the left side. If the brute force attack isn't quite working, as they are able to consolidate their army in one position ahead of a couple of shield batteries, then just start running around. And that's what Cure is doing, and SOS is going to have a lot of trouble deflecting that. Auto turrets are kind of going to lead this. Funnily enough, that this could result in the army responding, but this is SOS thinking, okay, I can't really respond to this. I need to worry about the frontline army, which is not wrong, but then it also kind of confirmed that Cure can just run in. 1 Colossus with 1 shield battery that's out of juice. A warp in, though, is quite good. This actually is perfectly timed defense for SOS. That Colossus did help quite a bit. Cure not able to end the game here. Only up 40 supply at this point. SOS able to saturate his 4th base as well as get his 5th on the way. SOS not going to give up yet. He was on a, surprisingly low gas count, and he did go for very zealot heavy for a while. So that has been able to saturate 4 bases pretty quickly, even going up to 5, already transferring some probes. He's also up to 79 probes at this point, but just enough gas to afford the 2 upgrades, 3 Colossus, and then really not a lot of Stalkers, just 8 of them, but it's enough. It's the good enough army all combined together to hold on, but it's not a good enough army to really take a fight. And at this point in the game for a Protoss player, you would generally want to have some type of map control. Maybe you're losing it at this point, depending on how the engagements have gone, but you probably have a time where you're the aggressor, and that just has never happened here for SOS. So he hasn't gotten his Colossus to abuse Cure's choke points, for instance, nor has he been able to set up a lot of run buys to really tear Cure apart. In fact, it's Cure who's the one that's threatening SOS right now. And SOS at 170 supply and 5 bases might actually think about going for some run buys at this point, maybe grab a War Prism. But he's trying to go for an attack to apply the pressure. 4 Colossus becomes 3 very, very quickly. Zealot just so far in front of those Colossus, not as effective. SOS not... You can't really win a fight here. This is still such a huge supply gap. 40 supply difference and an upgrade going to Cure. Plus he has ship weapons already. The Vikings are a little spicy. And this isn't even all of his army. Double drop goes back into the main base with the auto turrets to help out. Target fires the Robo. There was another Robo that was built, so we still have 1, I believe. We're gonna have 1. But did intend going up to 2. This will be cleaned up eventually, but Cure is setting his sights on the 5th base. SOS. I get these acceleration zones are kind of funky, aren't they? Not sure if they're really favoring anyone in particular, but they do make things pounce a little bit better. This is so far away, though, from these other bases. And SOS has such a limited vision. It was actually able to take the Xel'Naga for a while. We don't have Cure trying to break the rocks to give himself an easy pathway over to that. SOS could also break these rocks, actually. This wouldn't be a bad idea. Of course, they're trying desperately to win this game, and they're all over the place and doing all the APMs, but if you could take a second and think, I guess Cure would want to open up this pathway, and then SOS would want to make sure that it's closed. But anyway. 4 base setup for Cure is actually turning into a 5th base on the front. He's continuing his upgrade. 332 is now on the way, which also means, of course, his Liberator is going to pack a little more of a punch, and we could see those, at least a couple of them, make an appearance. Cure scans the left side, and he sees that a 6th base is on the way. His Tubble Medevac drop did end up surviving. His Raven did not. And I guess depending on if a Robo unit pops, the Medevac could go back in. 2 cannons and a shield battery, but if it just goes in this direction, it'd be fine. We got Cure starting to split up his army, and he is starting to take out some of these scouting pylons. We have 0 observers on the field, which I guess has not been that big of a deal. SOS has been able to track the army movements, but I'm like I'm thinking of even of like the ghosts. They won't have Cloak anytime soon because it's not that important of an upgrade at this point, but usually you have at least 1 observer. Well, Robo has been doing other things, and it's only been 1 Robo for so long. This little attack that was actually cleaning up the pylons manages to catch the 5th base by surprise. SOS is sharking around for the engagement and then trying to do his own attack on his opponent's side of the map, but is it going to work? These Colossus now really getting a lot of shots in as the Zealots melt to the bio that was correctly pulled back. The Vikings numerous enough to withstand the Stalkers trying to kill them, to successfully kill the Colossus, and that was not the engagement that SOS wanted. He was probably hoping that would be a better engagement for him because Cure has so much army elsewhere. He's got 3 medevacs worth of units to the right side, about 2 on the left. Even a 3rd came out there somewhere at some point, I don't even know. And so there was less army for Cure on the defense, but it was just a really well-executed defensive engagement for Cure. And SOS's 4 Colossus didn't really get a lot of time to attack into the bio. It has this damn annoying thing where Colossus love attacking SCVs, command centers, refineries instead of the actual thing they should be, and Zealots just get ahead of them. So there is actually some micro on the side of the Protoss. They don't just A move as much as we want to believe it. This does look like the last little bits of the game. Cure will take a 2-1 and advance to the winner's match of GSL, whereas SOS will await the loser of Reynor versus Solar. Bions accept Hellbats. Yeah, that's true. Hellbats are bio. Guys, we finally have Zerg. Isn't that amazing? I think it's amazing. And it's 2 Zerg. Isn't that wonderful? It's a ZVZ. I haven't cast one of these in a while. Top right of Tokamak is Reynor. Bottom left it is Solar. Yes, we do have some foreigners in GSL this year. As far as I understand it, basically, Trigger certainly was staying there for a year anyway. He is actually Korean, so he's able to stay there for longer than most of our tourist visas, for instance. And then Reynor is not, but Reynor was over in Korea as well, possibly because he just likes Korea. I think that's the reason for both of them, actually. There is still kind of a misconception, even to this day, years and years after GSL has kind of lost its prestige, that the foreigners are going to Korea because they want to train. Now, sometimes that is true, you know, but that usually would also be in a kind of dedicated team work. You go with a couple of people, maybe your teammates, maybe just good friends in the pro gaming scene, and you rent a place together, and your whole entire goal is to practice on the Korean ladder, 12 hours a day or whatever. That does sometimes happen, but very rarely. And a lot of the time that you see more like the individual pro gamers go to Korea, it's because they just really like Korea. And I really empathize with that. It's a great place to be, especially if you're young and you want to go partying and you want to have a safe place where you can take public transportation to anywhere you want to go. Obviously, if you do want to practice, the ladder is still, if you can get up to where the pros are laddering, obviously, then the ladder can still be pretty good. And the GSL is there. But since the GSL wasn't even announced up until like last month, so there was that 8-month cap or whatever that we had from the announcements from EWC to actually getting any announcements. These are not why they were there. But since GSL was announced, obviously you're going to try. Obviously you're going to go and do it. And Reynor and Trigger both were able to qualify for the GSL. Reynor has been in the GSL before, and he did get to, I believe, the round of 16. He was very close to getting to the round of 8, I think is what happened. He was very close after like a nail-biting round of 32 versus like Classic, I think it was. This was years ago. But otherwise, he's had disappointing results for GSL. Not quite able to bring his A game every time that he's participated. Trigger, I'm not sure, has been in the GSL, but I would have to double check that. He might have been in the last like 1 or 2 years. But I'm not sure. Anyways, so now we got that covered. It is a ZVZ, so we might actually get something exciting going. But now we talk about Reynor. Reynor, who also, by the way, hasn't really participated in a lot of tournaments, so people are kind of wondering where he's at. He did kind of breeze through the GSL qualifier, so he's pretty good. Solar is Korean. And Solar is definitely one of the favorites Korean Zergs, and he is a solid macro Zerg a lot of the time as well, although that has been different in Zerg versus Protoss, for sure. But ZVZ is just now the matchup that hardly ever gets tested. Not just because there seems to be a lack of Zerg in every single region, but because when it comes to ZVZ, it's so much about the mind games and the strategies that no one really wants to practice with anyone, because if they are going to face a Zerg in a tournament, it's going to be the guy they practice with, So there's really no safe way to practice your ZVZ. So, Reynor maybe got help from Lambo, to be fair. And Solar might have gotten help from Dark, although I think that might be a little less likely. But it's so not as much practice. Fortunately, GSL still has that nice little format where you do get some of that prep time, so it does make itself kind of stand out from the weekend tournaments. But anyway, thought we might get some Ling Baneling action, because we did have the Baneliness come down, but no one made a surplus of Lings. This has been totally about a safe opener. Very standard stuff up until about this point, where we do finally have them branching off away from each other. It's going to be Roachborns for both players, but Solar has gone for a much faster lair. Reynor has gone for +1 missile. Evolution Chamber is now coming down for Solar, which this is usually something you would be paying attention to as the opposing Zerg. So the Evolution Chamber, it can come down first, which I think is what Reynor did. And then you can get a jump start on that +1 missile. Now, that could be for a macro purpose, or it could be for an all-in purpose. So that's, that's only telling you so much information. But if there's literally no Evolution Chamber, or it's just now building, then you know that there are resources that would usually go into that for, let's say, a typical macro game have gone somewhere else. So Reynor would know that there is maybe 100 gas missing, maybe that's into a faster lair. What does a faster lair actually give you? It gives you faster roach speed, which can be a difference maker in some of these battles, but it doesn't give you a lot immediately. And Reynor is just building roaches. So this was not +1 missile, get ahead of the curve, go into your own lair. No lair intended. Overlord surplus into roaches nonstop. Reynor is going for an all-in, and Solar has absolutely not picked up on this. Whoa. Well, okay. Well, he canceled a building, but then he builds a spire and gets more drones anyway. Solar? Solar saw a handful of roaches come across the map. And that apparently to him was just like, oh, I don't need to worry about that. But +1 missile is finishing, and Reynor has been building an army. And Solar, I guess, has been unable to get a Ling Scout close enough. So really nice deflection of the scouts, yeah, exactly like that for Reynor, to hide this successfully. Solar is in a lot of trouble. He's built 14, 15 more drones with a couple more on the way as I'm speaking. He's got investments into +1 melee and roach speed, which are not going to kick in for this. I think he built one spine crawler and that's what he canceled. And now, because he was like, wait, are you? Okay, you're not. And now he's like, oh shit, you are. I'm going to try and build a bunch of spine crawlers, but he can only afford 3 and they will not be finished. Does put some resources into Ravagers, which can be very helpful, but the army supplies quite different. 30 supply army difference. Roaches for Reynor just going to go after those Ravagers because they are so weak. Oh my god, and the Corrosive Biles just hit so many of Solar's Overlords. He's not supply block, but that's kind of a bad sign. Just meant he didn't have a lot of supply to begin with. And Reynor will take a very easy win in game number 1. Really great deflection of scouts, I think, is what ultimately came to make that easy. Obviously scouting his opponent, but making sure that he himself is not scouted. Game number 2 on ley lines. On the top right it is Reynor, and the bottom left it is Solar. Yeah, well, fortunately, I don't know how exactly, but a lot of the time when these guys go to Korea, they do get a setup. So in the past, that has been because there have already been foreigners in Korea who have already invested into a setup. So obviously there's like team houses that were there that they could then kind of rent a space for. That hasn't been the case for years at this point, since COVID really. But the other thing is that they actually are they plan on staying in Korea for a significant amount of time, perhaps past their tourist visa time as well. And if you do that, if you plan on that, you can actually try and rent something longer term, and you can actually either plan on bringing your own setup, which is annoying but not impossible, or you can either rent something long term or actually just like buy something there, which I think all of those have been used. I once brought my setup to Korea, like almost 10 years ago at this point. I put my PC in a checked bag and it made it. Isn't that amazing? But yeah. And then there are still people in Korea that they have contacts with who they'd probably ask to see what the options are. But anyway, it's game number 2. Reynor gets an easy game 1 just by the idea that you got your strategy and you executed it, and that's all you really need to do. There's obviously a lot that goes into a game of StarCraft that we don't necessarily see result in big explosions. So all that time that Reynor was, scouting himself, confirming that Solar wasn't going to surprise him, was very important. But for Solar, he was trying to scout. He was trying to play the game perfectly, which is not over-defending and not under-defending. So seeing it all in, defend appropriately. Misread and all in, you're over-defending and you're falling behind in drones. So it's a very annoying game to play, honestly. And ZVZ is, I guess, going to stay this way for a while. It's like, it's not that it's ever been without its strategy and its all-ins and its cheese. I mean, one of the first things it was compared to was a knife fight in a phone booth, right? But there was a time where ZVZ was certainly seen as like, we know how this is going to go and we know what point we're going to get to, and it's going to be a bunch of roaches fighting each other. And there was, little variance from that. But now it's like, we really don't know. There are 50 build orders with all the slight variations you can do on each build order. And I don't know. Throw a dart at it and see which one you're going to do. See, it seems to be a lot of what it is, so it can be frustrating. And, PvP, it got this benefit of the hallucination a long time ago, and obviously with the recharge. Oh, lings are on the way. To kind of make it a little less coin flippy than what we would usually call it. It's still somewhat volatile, and you kind of give an underdog a little more credit in PvP, but it literally got this big bonus to scouting. And so it's, maybe not as bad as it once was. But ZVZ did not get a bonus to scouting. And it's just so difficult when you don't know what the eggs are creating. And for instance, they could have been creating drones. They're absolutely creating lings. Solar is going to see this kind of late, but there's not much else you can do about it. You just suddenly lings, What you can do is have a nice, safe baneling nest. You might not actually use it like last game, but you got it. Make a couple of banelings and then just start spamming your own lings. So far, so good on that, but the hatchery is getting awfully low. Reynor did not try and go for the throat there. He tried to go after that third hatch, believed that he would actually get the kill, but it was pretty far along. And thank goodness for that. Solar doesn't have to cancel it, and doesn't get it killed because he didn't cancel it. And with the lings popping out for him and the banelings formed, there's not much that Reynor can do except hope that maybe he can circumvent scouting later on and get a quick little snipe. He also has to worry about his own defenses, so have to make his own banelings. Queens, one of them partially surrounded. Not the best start to the fight, but Solar's not really bringing a lot behind this. So that might have been bad if Reynor had been trying the drone and Solar had been building a lot more lings, but actually Reynor is continuing to build lings alongside the Roach Warren, making this into a follow-up Roach ling attack. Solar is doing the exact same thing, though. So there's the problem, right? It's like 5 extra drones is really important if you're both just going to start making non-stop army. Because Defender's Advantage will kick in at this count, and Solar will have the lead in a macro game. So this is where Reynor really needs to find damage. And he's going to go for the hatchery. That's his baneling, not his opponent's. He's able to take out the hatchery. And maybe, because he also was, again, building a lot of army, maybe actually win out the macro game at this point. Solar, though, did also build army, as I've been talking about. Both of them really not joining a whole lot at this point. Is obviously going to try and do some type of counter damage. But the army supply, the Defender's Advantage now is flipped. Now the 3 worker difference, right, is well, Reynor's actually behind, so he does need to drone a little bit. Unless he's just going all in, which I think is what his plan is anyway. Then Defender's Advantage would have kicked in for Reynor. But Reynor built an army, is continuing to build army. Solar is the one who still has this economic lead, although he is entirely lacking a hatchery. And he is going to try and play out a little bit to the late game. Not the late game, but at least the mid game. Roaches are continuing to be built. Solar is not going to overproduce, I think, unless he gets real confirmation that his opponent is also going to produce drones. And I think the brief scout that he had saw that there was still nothing on his opponent's third base. So there's been that tentative period where you can't quite know what you're going to do. But finally, Solar does bust out the drones. Reynor is also going back into drones. And Solar has a couple extra things going for him, which is a faster lair and a much faster +1 missile. Quick check on the income advantage. You can see that just by being that little bit ahead earlier on and surviving the dedicated attack, and then surviving the next one as well, the losing the hatchery, it still gave him this economic advantage, which is turning into very tangible things. And Reynor, I thought he was just going to all in, but I guess he kept seeing a very competent army. He didn't see an opening. But it's always so hard to tell, honestly. Not just because I'm a bad Zerg player, but because there's constant reads from both players as to, are you making army? Are you making drones? I think you're making drones, so I gotta make drones as well. Okay, well, you're not making drones, and now I fucked up. And it happened so quickly. +1 missile being a good, minute ahead of Reynor. Roach speed, on the way as well. Solar could absolutely win the game with an attack here. Reynor has gotten about 7 more drones. And so if he does manage to hold on, he might catch up on all those upgrades as well. And then it might be a continued game at the very least. But this is going to be a sizable army difference. I think Reynor knows what his opponent is up to. These Overseers and Overlords trying to run around, see exactly what's going on. Overseer gets in here and sees kind of a lackluster number of drones. You can kind of just compare it to your own, which is perfectly saturated. And his instincts are before, or his scouts before that have told him the truth, which is that he was going to be attacked. So he has been building armies this entire time, alongside, I believe, a spine crawler already built, yes, and then 2 more are now on the way now that he's really, truly confirmed it. Then try and take some high ground advantage. He's got to use every defender's advantage he's got to try and hold on here. So high ground advantage, faster reinforcements, spine crawlers, queens, and maybe even a drone pull. These queens, unfortunately, with a no transfuse as of yet. Also no ravagers on the side of Reynor, so couldn't quite afford that. That is something that might hurt him as well, because maybe he could have cast a couple of corrosive biles by even further time. But letting Solar up on the high ground lets him get also a bit of a concave, goes after the queens, gets a lot of damage done, is going to be forced to retreat. But it looks like Ling's also got into the main base, so a lot of lost mining team here for Reynor, who also lost some drones as Solar decided to go back into his own drones, actually. Solar busted out a couple of drones while that attack was happening before going back into army. Now he's also saturated on 3 bases and does need to get to a 4th base. Reynor kind of just falling behind at every step. If he had been able to hold on to that engagement while not taking any drone damage or any general economic damage, because he also has queens, which could kind of affect that as well, then maybe this is a more even game. But he did take that damage, and he did have to even sacrifice drones, right, to even get the spine claws in the first place. That's why he went so far down in drones. And Solar did decide, like, not to just continue all-inning, and he had his chance to get his drones, as well as start up his +2, Overlord Speed, as well as Burrow, and Tumbling Claws. Do like seeing some contamination, just because we don't see it that often. And that is going to help Reynor catch up on the upgrades, but he's going to do something for very, very different. Speaking of contamination, Solar did the same thing in the main. Did he also scout the Spire? He did not. Even though there was no queen to even threaten the Overseer, he did not get far enough back to see the Spire, but that Spire, a scout on it would obviously be nice. It's always nice to get the scout, but it might not really matter. Reynor's Spire is only halfway done, but Solar is maxed out. And if you're maxed out, there really is nothing else to do but attack. And Reynor is just so far down in the army supply. Losing drones once again as well to the Tumbling Claws, which are going to scout the Spire. Reynor, what can you build? 4 mutas? That's not going to kill these roaches nearly fast enough. And a nice UG to end this game. Of course, you meant type DJ. Game 3 it is. I know, I was thinking that. Kids have no idea what a phone booth is. I still have the PC that I took to Korea. I don't think I do, actually. It was a smaller PC. And I must have stripped it for parts. And either used some of the parts or gave some of the parts away to, like, my brothers or something. Because, yeah, this PC is only 3 years old, I think. And the other PC I have is, like, my gigantic one from, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago or something. Maganathas, once again, game 3. It's going to be one of those map pools where you just see the same maps over and over again. In the top left, it is Reynor. And in the bottom right, it is Solar. Now it's tied up 1-1. A little more of the who, what, hey, are you, and then not, are you, and then you're gonna, okay, in that last game, the CVZs. The first game was a little more decisive. You know, there was, again, a lot of that scouting that tells them whether or not they should be making army or drones that just don't really result in something, as I said, like tangible, if you will. But that second game kind of felt like it was full of like, wait, no, you're, and then you need to, okay, and then you're gonna, and it ultimately ended up in Solar's favor basically every single time too. You know, losing the hatchery can seem like a very bad thing, and generally it is considered a bad thing. You don't want to lose the hatchery, but that game is one of the examples among countless examples that exists where the loss of a third hatch at kind of a particular time, a particular just I don't know how to say, a particular time, but it's not like totally timing based. It's not like if you lose that 3 minutes, you're totally fine. But the phase of the game, there you go, the phase of the game, sometimes that third hatch actually is not nearly as important I mean, literally, sometimes having 5 more drones means that you are perfectly saturating your 2 bases, and the guy having a 3rd hatch, yeah, it means he has more larva, and it means that it's already settled, so maybe he could build a defensive unit with the creep that's already there, sure. But maybe he isn't saturated on 2 bases to begin with, so that 3rd hatch doesn't actually like kick in the way that we would expect it to. That's probably exactly what happened in the last game. So, while it can look devastating, there's also just, again, so many what are you doing in ZVZ that can cause you your own hesitation. I mean, if there's a way for the Zerg player who kills a 3rd hatch to know exactly that the other guy is going to either drone and recover, or he's going to all-in me, then you probably always get ahead because you killed the 3rd hatch. But there's no way to really know that. You have to consider that they will have maybe a slightly bigger army that's going to come across the map. Or even if the army's not that much bigger, maybe the Lings are going to be able to actually enter into your natural and main base and cause some delayed mining and kill your queen and whatever else it is. So there's tons of examples out there where that 3rd hatch kill, it actually is the bare minimum of what Reynor did. It's certainly not fatal, and it's not as devastating as it might appear. But moving on from that game, once again, a very standard setup, 3 hatches, no one trying to do any type of 2-base shenanigans. I have no idea where the meta is at for ZVZ. I'm completely blanking on that. Since last time I cast a ZVZ. The Open Cups have no ZVZs, and even the tournaments that are pre-planned, like a Warty tournament or a Pigsty tournament or something like that, they often struggle to invite enough Zergs. There just aren't that many Zergs to invite of a certain caliber, and then some of them don't accept the invite. So, just really not a lot of them. Which means that it's always fun, because it feels like you're getting something new. I don't want to cast my 50 billionth TVP with the same type of pacing. But ZVZ, it means I feel much dumber, but at least we get some exciting stuff out of it. Baneling is coming down as well. Again, generally for safety, like that first game, but last game, Reynor kind of... Well, he didn't actually use Banelings to be aggressive. It was just a Ling thing. But still, you can add on Lings to this. You could go for an attack. But the last time I've seen a truly dedicated Ling Baneling attack, well, last time I saw a ZVZ, I guess. Years and years ago. Not quite that bad. Evolution Chamber coming down really quickly for the Reynor this time. For Solar, surprisingly quick Roach Warren. Little scuffles going on with the Lings that they did create. 10 and 10. Actually, one died for Solar. So very similar on that account. Oh, a Carapace build. Okay. So the Ling of Solar, obviously sees the Evolution Chamber. Could not know what the upgrade is. And since we're going to be waiting for the upgrade, for the most part, I'm paying more attention to Solar. He's building 5 Overlords right now. As his Roach Warren finishes. Generally a sign they're going to try and build Roaches, which are very supply heavy. Reynor actually has not scouted the Roach Warren. He has been defending for the most part and has not been able to sneak, I suppose, this Ling. I feel like this Ling is exactly for that purpose. Ling, what are you doing? But yeah, we do have some more pressing issues. Drones are gonna go down. Well, they should. You'd think they would. Some drones do go down, but 3 more should have probably also went down. Don't know. Okay. Decided to use the second Baneling on the Lings, I guess, instead of the drones. Means that Reynor loses 2 instead of 5. His Overlord does see the Roaches on the way. Reynor was building drones and Roaches, I think, just before he saw the Roaches, so this isn't the absolute worst case scenario. I guess that was exactly when the Ling came in to see the Roach Warren, and he was like, okay, I also need to build Roaches. And that... The difference of building Roaches 10 seconds before you actually see the attack and building it as the attack comings might actually save Reynor's life here. Or maybe not. It's still a lot from Solar, and Reynor is quite late to the defense. He does get some Roaches on the front line, but already losing his queens. Not going to be able to get that Spine Crawler up. 6 drones, 7 drones already going down too. Reynor had just about that much to lose, to be fair, and he does have that +1 Carapace that will kick in. And he's kind of got to wait for that. Now he's distracted the army long enough that his 3rd hatch is still very, very healthy. Even the Spine Crawler getting a couple of hits. Even the Roaches produced from the 3rd base able to survive, opposed to like popping right into the battle and getting killed. That means that they will all have +1 carapace to actually use, but Lings are spilling in here, and Lings are getting that devastating surround. And Lings do not kill roaches very quickly, of course, but they keep them in place so that Reynor can't keep playing this kind of tug-of-war game almost, where he's to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, trying to buy time for more of Farron's advantage to kick in. The Lings ensure that can't happen as much, and Lings are just obviously the fast thing to get across the map. Now, Solar is not continuing this attack. He did make an X amount of extra Lings. We can see even more on the way, but drones are now on the production tab. Lair is on the way for Solar as well, and he has given himself a almost, okay, let's call it a 10-worker lead as of this point. Reynor did not know the attack was on the way fast enough. And loses the third hatch at what I would say is definitely a devastating time to lose a third hatch. +1 missile on the way for Solar. And one thing that Reynor has over his opponent is the upgrade. But I don't think the +1 carapace will cover 15 army supply now, but then consider that his attack will be seen by the overlords, meaning that Solar can produce army. And I'm thinking if we have 20 army supply difference, that's something that Solar could win out with defense advantage. Reynor seems like he's kind of acknowledging that and saying, hey, I really can't do anything on the attack. He's going to try and play this out, but he has fallen so far behind on the drones. So even as he builds that number back up, his third hatch, I was going to see if the saturation timings kind of worked out perfectly at least, and I guess they kind of do. He still has to saturate these gases he's getting. It's not a good look anyway. Clearly, Solar's already mining from his third hatch alongside those gases. Almost 60 supply advantage. Reynor might be going on to face some SOS here. I don't think there's a way for Solar to screw this up. I'm racking my brain. Reynor probably is too. But this is enough to A move, I think. With the +1 missile as well, yeah. ZVZ, he Uggs again. Maybe it is just an Ugg. CVZ is not going to be Reynor's strong suit today. GG's moves on to the Solar moves on to the winners versus Cure, and Reynor's going to face some SOS. Are these bots? I've gotten 2 people who said just followed, which I've never gotten before. And the exact same capitalization and wording. Just waiting for the ads to play out. Okay. In the top right of our winners match, we have the blue Terran Cure. And in the bottom left, it is the red Zerg Solar. So, it's been a while since I've seen Solar ZVT. He faces so many Protoss in the Open Cups after all. But Solar's always been a macro Zerg to me. In this matchup, I believe that has stayed the case. In ZVP, it's just different for, I think, all Zergs. But Kira isn't going to care about his macro, or maybe that's exactly why he does this. He does care about Solar's aptitude for macro. Oh my god, what is this opener? So the first gas cancel, like whatever, but the second one too. Solar's in trouble. Solar is being 2-raxed, so yeah. It's been a while since I've seen a 2-rax, actually. I actually was talking about this either this week or last week, because we did get maybe 1 or 2 TVZs. And considering how often it works and how good of a build it is, blah, 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 blah. I'm like a little surprised. But a 2-rack start things off, and Solar is just not expecting this. Of course, it's very unlikely you're going to scout this as a Zerg player. You can send your... I mean, you can send your Overlords in like 2-racks positions, but the first one really wants to get across the map. And the second one, you know, it's got a 50-50 chance going the right direction, or maybe even like 33 if like some people put them in the middle or something crazy. I don't know. So oftentimes the second Overlord does just position itself more in the choke of the natural or something, maybe for like a couple of seconds, because it wants to see if the SCVs and Marines are on the way. The drone is the one that does it this time, though. The drone's like, hey guys, there's 2 SCVs on the way. 3, in fact. One goes to the middle of the map that would have maybe looked like an SCV scout for this Overlord. But it is to place the 3 bunkers down. He's going to go for a full wall. A couple of things here that I, you know, definitely remember all the time. Bunkers cannot be salvaged if they're attacked. So there's a little more investment into this if it doesn't work. But if it does work, then, well, Kira's in a really position. Drones are pulled quickly to make sure the wall does not get completed, and that is the first thing to do here. But chasing after these Marines with the only drones is usually not what you want to do. 2 bunkers do get up and running as well. Of course, you can save the SCVs. Spine Crawler was built, and that's more so what time you're trying to buy it for is. And I think this is enough. Yeah, 2 queens, X amount of lings, Spine Crawler. Again, you cannot salvage, which Kira's probably forgotten. And then now he's remembered. Yeah, I caught that. But an Overlord does die, and a handful of drones also died. And it was a 2-racks, not a 3 or a 4-racks. So not as dedicated. But Solar, you know, I do remember actually thinking he wasn't particularly good against the proxy Raxes. So I was a little concerned, but that's, I mean, maybe as good as you can really get. Maybe he could have pulled his drones back a little bit sooner, though, if I'm being highly critical. Kira is going to go home. Sometimes one barrack stays back to scout, but that doesn't seem to be a concern for Kira right now. Solar, one of the less likely Zergs to try and follow up that defense with his own attack. Looks like he was a little scared of a potential bulking up of the Marines, so he built a second Spine Crawler before realizing his opponent was going for a command center. So, had to cancel that. But yeah, Kira's sending the 2-racks home. He's going to be able to use them, of course, as a production facility. Kind of in a pseudo 2-1-1, I suppose. 3rd CC is also on the way. So, he did delay his gases. This would be bad if Solar was going for an attack. If Solar was building a Roach Warren in his main, and there was no Barrack Scout on it, and it was 3CC all before the factory, pretty sure Solar would automatically win. But it's not. So good read there from Cure, who, I don't know, did he get an advantage straight up from this? Technically, in the resources lost, he did. And you do give more... You know, if it's workers that were killed, you think that is a little more devastating than if it was, you know, of course, 7 lings, right? And it saw some supply blocks as well. I'd give this secure, yeah. You always would just want to straight up win or straight up kill the hatchery and put them in that extremely uncomfortable position of, you know, maybe all-inning. But if you can't, then I'd say this is pretty damn good damage. Just gonna go right into the bio play too. Again, so much opportunity to die to any type of attack on the way. But, I mean, not even a dedicated roach attack. Even a ling swell, although a good number of Marines did end up escaping. But even that would be a little scary at this point. Just because there is so little high technology units that are usually the ones that defend. The Hellions, higher technology, great against lings. A Banshee could be the thing that protects you against roaches, but... Cure is able to skip all that, get straight to 3CC, get straight to a 2-1-1, basically. And Solar, well, he's just droning. There's not much else for Solar to do. You know, if he all-laned, maybe it would have worked, but you never know that. He's trying to get his third base up, trying to get his creep spread out. He's trying to get that scout on the timing. What he would really like to know is the exact timing of a medevac. So he actually has zero idea as to what his opponent is doing. There was no scout in the third CC. All you've scouted so far are the Marines that looked roughly the number of what you escaped, maybe a few more, so you know they are producing Marines. That's basically what you got from that. But whether or not they are already getting, they are getting a Banshee, I guess, or... Well, frankly, just the 2 medevac timing, actually, I think is the most you're going to be concerned about. 2 medevacs on the way. Need to prepare for it. Get your queens in position. Get them combined together. And get, let's say, 20 lings on the field as well. That's what you're really going to be worried about, seeing what you saw. Unfortunately, while the queens are together, no lings are there to help protect them. Looks like Kira won't be too eager to find anything more. Now the spine helping right there. I think the spine wasn't there. He might have jumped after more queens. Because one thing's for certain, you're not going to find a Baneling Nest this quickly. There really isn't a lot for... It's not good for a Zerg player to have to rely on a Baneling Nest just to deflect 16 Marines. Baneling Nest is on the way, and you could make a couple of Banelings, but generally you want queens and lings to guard against this. The fact that this is already causing so much chaos is quite bad. And even though the spawning pool is saved, again, chaos is the most important thing here. Drones being pulled off minerals, lings dying in subpar engagements, queens getting pushed back, queens having to reposition. Because this is just a taste. I mean, this is not Cure's entire game plan is to go for this attack, right? So anything that he can do to get the Zerg player off his groove is good. And then the follow-up with the tank, with more Marines, with more medevacs, as your third CC is comfortably mining. I think Cure's in a very good position. And use the remnants of the drop to clean up some creep. Little Ling run by does catch Kira a little off guard, but does not manage to find any damage. 1-1 already on the way for the Terran player. A good bit ahead of Solar by 25 seconds. Baneling speed will be done. That would usually be very important. I mean, it is very important, but I'm worried about the general size of Solar's army. Now, this supply difference at this stage isn't remarkable. It isn't completely insane. Solar can absolutely defend with this, although Baneling speed is not done, and that is concerning. But he might lose that 4th hatch. He might have to cancel that, right? He's already lost positioning on this 4th hatch, so it's not going to happen right now. And that could then spiral out of control, as it kind of already has in the injects, in the larva amounts. That 4th hatch is there not just for the economy, but then also for your larva. And if you kind of concede and build a macro hatchery that can maybe make your 4th too delayed, and it gets a little awkward. And this is really what Kira's doing, is just making this game as awkward as possible for Solar. Solar could technically make all of the right decisions at all the right times. Make just enough army to say, Kira, you cannot attack me. Make just enough drones to make sure that he can sustain against an onslaught. Can choose to either delay or get his technology at just the right time to actually get some benefit of it, you know? It's possible, but it is very, very difficult in a position where you are the one that's not in control of the game. Kira has been guiding you for most of it. One is already done, although Solar is not too far away on that one. He is grabbing a Hydralisk Den off of 5 gases here. The Hydras will help deplete his bank a little bit and give him a little bit of DPS, maybe help take care of some of these medevacs. Number is quite high and higher as I speak. We've got continued tank production, but we do have Drilling Claws on the way, so Widowmines will eventually make an appearance. This is a pretty nice spread from the Terran player. Pretty nice. Cleans up that little creep on the backside. Solar decides that a surround will not be good enough, and we'll go for a run by, but some really nice SimCity here from Cure. Cure's SimCity helps out the tank really well positioned on this little ledge. I really like that. I would steal it if I had the guts to play bio, but I don't. And Cure, you know, I didn't really think about it when I was talking about their backgrounds, but, you know, Cure in the past has had some pretty poor-looking TVZ, to be honest. There have been some stinkers from Cure in TVZ. Games where he just looks completely lost. What did I cast recently? It was like a Dark versus Cure series where Cure ended up losing, And I was just like, oh, okay, no, he's still kind of awkward when it comes to this matchup. So that, like, I'd be worried about that, but he's clearly doing fine in this game. He's clearly got a control of it. Maybe if this game would actually become even and Solar had 6 bases and, you know, was getting up to high technology and stuff, maybe then I'd be a little worried, but Cure is doing pretty well here. He's got his 4th CC on the way, then the 3 barracks, so he's not all-inning. Continuing just a slow advancement of his army. And one that Solar really can't stop. Solar's best plan right now is just get one hell of a surround, which he's kind of hung up on, actually. Some reinforcements catch the back attack, and he can't be coming in from just simply one direction. Banelings are no longer good enough, as they're just coming in single file. Easily taken out. Cure, slow, methodical, wins the game with the push. GG's. Yeah, my cat makes everything better. It's true. In the bottom right of Pylon, it is Cure. Top left, we got Solar. Cure still on Team Liquid, I believe, and then Solar did join a team recently, I want to say. Or no, he's, yeah, Falcons. That's what it is. He's on Falcons, so I think he joined it a while ago, but I think it was a question of whether it was going to stick. Anyway, so he's on the team. Obviously, both players eyeing the EWC. This is really what people are playing for. I'll take this time in an early game TVZ where Cure isn't too relaxing to talk about the situation. Patreon.com/GSL. That's how you can get your hand on these replays, as well as like behind the scenes stuff and maybe something else I don't remember, but also to support GSL, which still gives out, I think, like $25,000 to the players, which is not as much as it used to be, of course. But the GSL Patreon, you know, it does go to the player prize pool, and that's usually where people want to put their money. So consider checking it out. But GSL has been reduced significantly. Not just in prize money, but even just the format, you know? And as sad as it is to say, it's not just because they only have a limited number of days to give StarCraft. It's somewhat also because there's just a limited number of players who are playing in Korea who would call themselves pro gamers. The GSL qualifiers did have enough players, I guess, to make around a 32, but barely, I think. So, you know, that includes like maybe some like master players who signed up who wouldn't really usually be worth watching. And I can say that because I'm a Masters player. So yeah, that's the unfortunate part. But you still have really, really dedicated pro gamers in the Korean scene who are eyeing the biggest prizes, and that's more so where GSL is at right now. So little prestige from GSL. People still love the format, you know, the casters, and supporting, I guess, people who have supported us for a decade plus as well. It's, you know, changed hands a couple times, but still, it's all well and good. But really, what everyone wants here is to win, because if they win, they get a spot in EWC, and that's $700,000 on the line for EWC. So one spot, the GSL winner of Season 1 and then also Season 2. So, yeah, that's what most of these people are eyeing. And otherwise, we do have some other initiatives, I suppose. Like, we do have the RSL, but I will just be frank at this point and say that I personally don't support RSL. Like, I'll talk about it, and I retweeted them and all that, and I actually am casting the qualifiers, but I'm not putting my own money into the Patreon because it is such a small amount going to the players. I think right now GSL is giving out $25,000 to the players, and RSL is giving out $3.5K to the players. So, just throwing it out there so you can also decide where to put your money. There is also the Korean StarCraft League, which has been happening for years at this point, which is an online cup, bi-weekly, I believe. That also, you know, all the money you give to them will also go to the players. But moving on. We got a third CC from Cure, as, of course, last game started off with the 2 racks, and that made the build a little bit jankier than we're used to, but it was at the end of the day a 3CC. This one is 3CC 111, so pretty much the most typical thing you can ever do. And we might even get to Hellion Banshee. Kind of seems that way. Yep. Solar doesn't quite know about this yet. All he's seen is a second gas, but since you one gas to 3cc in the main anyway, you can just put the second gas in the natural and add just a little more confusion to an Overlord who is only scouting from that direction. If there was an Overlord coming from this direction, easy scout. Easiest scout of your life. But yeah, that's, you know, you get one Overlord basically on this side of the map and gotta choose where to put it. If replacing my orange cat with a big orange cat with black stripes, it's like an upgrade from Lings to Paintings. I don't think Dimitri would be very happy if I spray painted some black on him. Guys, I got to play with the cutest little kittens. These were like 9-week-old kittens, but they seemed so much younger. They were so cute, guys. Anyway. Hellion Banshee is out, and Solar is going to scout this in time to get the Spore Crawlers, which is really what you want to scout. Solar is unlikely to do an all-in, but it is really difficult for a Zerg player who even is prone to all-inning to do so with a lot of advanced knowledge. You know, the advanced knowledge of how your opponent plays is one thing, but I'm talking like, you know, Dark all-ins before he can confirm it's a 3rd CC, because you can't confirm 3rd CC and then all-in. I don't think it really works. Not when the Terran players are as good as they are. Build orders are perfect. Banshees are scouting. Hellions are scouting. You know, they know how to respond to the all-ins once they've scouted them, right? So, yeah, not going to happen. But Solar, I think the important thing for his macro game is scouting a couple of Banshees, kind of the timing on potential medevacs, you know, far from here, but that's the point. And hopefully deflects everything perfectly. Banshees, Spore Crawlers, kind of easy. Hellions, they can add a little bit of peppa. They can be a little sketch, but with so much creep spread successfully reaching out here, I don't think Kira's even going to bother suiciding the Hellions. Two Banshees going to arrive in the main, and as I said, be pretty much deflected by the Spore. The gas mining drones going down is always the most annoying thing you can do. Should always do that. And there's not much else for Solar to scout necessarily. I mean, the medevacs are going to be on the way out. A drop will occur. You might want to scout if they're getting tanks or Widow Mines, although in this case it is the safe thing to do is to get a couple of tanks first. There is the possibility of your opponent going for roaches, for instance. You'll see, like, Clem was very popular for being kind of weak to roaches, and part of that was because he would go immediately into Widow Mines. But it also made him scary, because he would just immediately get on this, like, you know, Marines everywhere, Widow Mines everywhere. But yeah, tanks are usually safest thing first. And then Cure did just go tanks. Like, that was his composition in the last game. And then after that, the Zerg player might want to go ahead and try and scout if it's an Arax, which Cure, he's... To my mind, he's more of a macro player, but honestly, it's more like I have no strong opinion. It's like I've seen him cheese, because literally last game he 2-racks. I've seen him 8-racks. I've seen him, you know, do 1-base builds even versus Protoss at times, but it's just more like he does it kind of in equal numbers, so I don't have a strong impression of it either way. Which means that Solar should be at least willing to give credit to a potential 8-racks. It's usually a little more map dependent, and I'm not quite sure which maps are the best for 8-racks. But anyway, besides that, we have the first push out. So Cure actually bringing his 2 tanks here. Armory's about to finish. 1-1 is done. Combat Shield seems a little late. But the Armory finishing means that these Hellions come to Hellbats and protect the tanks from any back attacks, which Solar is 100% setting up. 1-1's not done for Solar. He's actually willing to give up his 4th... Well, not willing, but he's kind of forced to give up his 4th base. Good focus fire there from Cure, who loses 12 SCVs back at home. Whoops-a-daisy. A potential back attack did turn into a run-by that just killed all 20 SCVs. Cure is making the wisest decision possible, saying, okay, I'm going to not pay attention to my SCVs. They're dead. I missed out on being able to guard them. I'm not going to spend a lot of effort clearing this up. Instead, I'm going to make sure that my attack continues to work, because he is trying to find as much damage as possible with Marines, and if you look away, that's when the Banelings connect with you. So Cure making the decision there. Yes, he lost some SCVs, but he still has the attack on the way, and it's still a scary attack. Even though Solar is clearly buying a lot of time to get to a much bigger army to take care of this, I would say it's still a scary attack. And Cure is able to actually reinforce it, which is, you know, kind of countering the Solar buying time to an extent. But Solar, he does have a good-sized army. 20 supply down is actually really not atypical, I would say. It's about getting that good position. And that's where it's difficult. Once again, reinforcements able to successfully join up. An attack on the third CC is going to probably kill all these SCVs. But it's also going to give away a certain amount of Banelings and Lings. Just takes it to go, I guess. Don't stick around, just going to die to the tank. Cure obviously feeling the loss of economy. He's kind of being forced to 3-base all in at this point. He probably wanted to get a 4th base, but losing that many SCVs means he can't. He definitely wanted to have 2-2 on the way, not just +2 attack, but he had to make a choice. He is putting all of his eggs in this basket, but he was forced to. Solar little supply block that's now coming in from behind, trying to catch these reinforcements once again. Cure very, very slowly C-chopping forward. Is a little bit on creep. Going to back up away from it, though. On the backside, Solar's Banelings hoping for those beautiful connections, but the tank focus fire is pretty good. The Hellbats end up protecting the Marines from the last few Banelings, and that is too many Marines left over. Even with some remnant Banelings remaining, that is not going to be enough. And Cure manages to hold on. And will take the 2-0, advance out of this group. GG. Temu Terran, oh my god. Triangles. You don't want to play with triangles? What if they gave you a ball that had the shape of the triangles and you had to fit the triangle into it? Game number 1 of the losers match, or the lower bracket match, if you are offended by losers. It's going to be on ley lines, ZVP, top right Reynor, bottom left SOS. Hard to say what SOS is going to do here. Because you just don't see much of them. So ZVP, or PVZ for him, I guess, I'm not sure. But for Reynor and ZVP, I can almost guarantee that he is going to do some type of mid-game all-in. It's a real stretch, isn't it? Can't possibly do such a specific thing. There we go. But that's the way that it's been going for Zergs. And that is what Reynor did in the qualifier. Which, oh my god, did he actually face SOS in the qualifier? Is that? Maybe he faced Classic, actually. Because I know I cast SOS versus Nightmare. So yeah, I think it was Reynor versus Classic, actually. Okay, so yeah, never mind, I'm not gonna check. So I don't know what SOS is gonna do, but he'd probably be aware of that as well, that an attack is very, very likely. Now, if he wanted to, he could do a 2-base attack. Maybe not an all-in, or maybe an all-in, I guess. And that would hit before most of what the Zergs are doing here. But not guaranteed, I suppose. It feels like the meta right now, you're going to be more afraid of what the Zerg is doing. Usually what it is that you are kind of like, well, this is going to be normal up until the Protos's 2-base is determined. And a lot of the times lately, that had been just like, okay, it's determined because he's gone for a Stargate, and he's clearly going to take a 3rd Nexus. Okay, end of story. But occasionally we get the Twilight Council, right? Occasionally we get Resonant Glaives. SOS would be the type of guy to throw out another charge all in, just because we do get some Archon drops occasionally. And then that's usually where the story is kind of leading to initially. And then the Zerg player might then be going for some type of low drone count all in, might be playing a super macro game, but in this meta, does seem to be a lot of all ins. So right now, SOS is going for the Stargate. We'll see if he just goes right into the Oracle. Reynor probably pretty on guard, because his SOS is well known as a cheeser and all-inner. He's probably going to be a little more on guard than he would be against like a Showtime, for instance. But once you see that Oracle, you can breathe a little easier. It's not a guarantee anything's happening, but something. Ooh, excuse me. And so Reynor probably will see that, and then will... I mean, that's... It looks like it's going to be something that kills an Overlord, doesn't it? Yeah, it is. Well, there you go. So this is... An Oracle is not 100%, no worries. Totally build 50 drones, dude. But it's usually like a sign of things at the point that direction, I guess. But anything else, and then you're like, okay, what exactly are you doing? And Void Ray into 2 gases taken already. Zerg players generally would not bother to scout these gases right now. It seems really stupid to just show 2 gases taken this quickly to an Overlord that is mere like centimeters away from scouting it. But it is so unlikely for the Zerg player to bother scouting for that gas. Isn't that hilarious? Funnily enough, the Overlord is killed. It's like pushed to the 3rd gas. And seeing a 3rd gas that early is a huge tip. There is something very mischievous going on. The Void Ray already was a tip, but sometimes, you know, like Hero has done this. Hero has gone for a Void Ray and done something a little bit weird, but not this weird, I think. But then he also has done it and then done a totally like macro-oriented thing, right? Just to keep his opponent on guard. But this is SOS. This is at least 3 gases on 2 bases, and not like, you know, Reynor didn't stop a 3rd base from coming, and then SOS is desperate. Like, this is very clearly his build. And it's pretty likely, I would think, actually, that it is going to be Stargate. As soon as you see that 3rd gas, just assume there's a 4th, and assume that there is either Tempest or Carriers on the way. In this case, it is Tempest immediately into the Tectonic Destabilizers? Is that what it is? Nailed it. And so, right now, it doesn't look like Reynor has really responded to anything. In fact, he's even building a Roach Warren, which maybe you're thinking like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, he's gonna die, what an idiot. But the weird thing that happens when you see something this early is that you can't just immediately react to it. Oh my god, Ling's got in. Well, if there's any doubt that he didn't know, he definitely knows now. But I can almost assure you that he did know. Almost. Just because, as I was trying to say, you can't immediately react to it. If you stop building drones and start building army because you saw a 2-base Protoss going mass air, you actually are hurting yourself. If you're at like 30 drones and you're like, okay, I'm gonna kill them now because I hate playing against these guys, it's actually quite unlikely that you would win. You don't have a lot of anti-air in the early game, first of all. And then second of all, SimCity and walls are actually very annoying. So this is why you wouldn't see an immediate heavy response, even though I would believe that Reynor kind of knew this was on the way. What might be a little, you know, uncertain is if it really was 3rd and 4th gas, because 4 gases would have been a total confirmation. 3rd gas might have been something else, I guess, but, you know, and a Roach Warren just for safety makes a lot of sense. But he's actually already got like a good number of queens. He's obviously getting into a Spire, because this is going to be the easiest thing to deal with it. The Spire and Corruptors made from the Spire are very expensive. But 3 base, if you're literally only making Corruptors, probably not that bad. And then if you get enough Corruptors, you can guarantee that the Tempest can't play the runaround game. 9 drones have already gone down, to be fair. Reynor is forced to remake them. So he is not banking his minerals with his gas currently. The Tempest range is just so annoying, and with the upgrade that they have, they kill buildings so quickly. The Queens, yeah, they won't die that quickly, actually, although we'll eventually get to a one-shot count of Tempest, but they don't die that quickly. They just can't chase after them. The Reynor's still at 65 drones. His first 6 Corruptors are on the way. SOS should know, you know, whether it was really quick or not, SOS knows that Corruptors should be on the way. And so he is building some Void Rays to help out, probably planning on a recall, and then defend at home. Is that one shot in the Queens? Is it 5 Tempest? He got the hatchery. Did lose a Tempest in the process, though. Just that one extra shot from the Corruptor kind of sucks. But Reynor lost an entire natural. He is building a 4th base that isn't really all that behind in time, so the drones, a little bit of lost mining time, not too much. Void Ray, it's called Flux Vein still. The Void Ray upgrade is on the way, making go vroom vroom. +1 air weapons as well. Twilight Council, 3rd base is up and running, all 6 gases as well. And this is more what the important part is, I would say. You kind of, I think, predict the game to look something like this up to this point, because it's so difficult for the Zerg player to kill a Protoss before they get here. It's more like, how much damage do the Zerg take? How well prepared are they to go into more of the later mid-game, if you will? And can they stop a fourth base from coming down? So the third base is going to be kind of tricky to kill, but that is more so the target than allowing them to get to a fourth base. So the third base, only 2 shield batteries, so it's not terribly scary. The corruptor count is getting up to 15. We could go up to Vipers and Infestors and play like super macro late game. But Reynor doesn't really seem like he plans on doing that. He might be just trying to bust out as much Roach Corruptor as possible. And then obviously the Roaches do not shoot up. They don't contribute to that fight, but they will take care of all the stack defense and then decimate the economy. And there will eventually be ground units for the Protoss as well, as we can see. Charge is on the way, upgrade for the ground army's on the way, Storm is on the way, Archons could be formed. This is not going to be a lot happening for a while. That's what it is. Infestation Pit is added, actually. I do think brute forcing is just such a difficult call to make. Especially if you did have your hatchery actually killed. This has not been a perfect game for the Zerg. Because it's kind of the same idea as what I was talking about before. If you try to brute force it when you're on 3 base and they're on 2, that probably isn't going to go very well. And while some Zergs might brute force it to take this third down, that also is only a limited attack time. You're not totally rich. You're not 90 drones, 7 bases, 5,000 in the bank in case it doesn't work. If you are going to go later in the game, spellcasters would be helpful. Infestors for fungal, helpful. Infestors even for microbial shroud, something you don't hear very often. Still kind of useful, although not really the goal here without Hydras. Hydra's Den is on the way though. And Vipers. Vipers eventually. High Templars are here for the feedbacks. Reynor is not going to be able to stop this 4th base from coming on up. He is staying just ahead on the hatchery count, which is, you know, what you want to do, but maybe even more will come down eventually. This is certainly a way for the Protoss player to ensure that they're not all-ins. If we're talking about the typical all-ins, the meta that I was discussing, you know, we're talking, you know, mass roach on like, what, 60 drones, something? Maybe Ling Hydra, actually. I don't know, a lot of roach, actually. And then, again, brute forcing that against someone who has literally all air army, you're taking a big chance there. You're taking a huge chance. You're trying to say, like, I'll kill you before your army kills me, and that doesn't always work out. So, in a weird way, this might have been SOS's or the general, you know, Protoss response to what is happening, is to be like, well, I'm just going to make it so you really can't do that, and you're going to be forced to play the macro game. Unfortunately, the macro game is not very fun. Not this type of macro game, anyway. It's probably a pretty wise thing to do, and it kind of it puts SOS more in the driving seat than maybe you would expect. I mean, he did kill the hatchery, so maybe that sounds totally fine, but it makes Reynor respond to him. Now, one of the reasons that Zerg do all in, by the way, is that they don't want to face this army. Fungal, of course, about actually hit a couple there. But the army of the Protoss kind of agreed upon generally to be better. If properly controlled and composed, I suppose. This is maybe not the best fight. SOS kind of brute forcing it right now. The Fungals are all gone. There weren't that many to begin with. Static defense is all gone as well. Reynor is in a decent bit of trouble, but Lurkers are on the way. Ravagers try to stay alive as long as possible. All the Tempests are gone. Corruptors have done their job, and now they look a little useless in the sky. But it's about whether or not Reynor can hold on to the ground. Yeah, it's taking out a couple of Archons on the left side. Lurkers, though, jumped on to the right. There is an Observer in the army. More reinforcements on the way for Reynor. Just barely enough bank to hang on by the looks of things. SOS tries to retreat, but in doing so loses all of his Archons. None of them able to retreat, in fact. Some of the High Templars also being chased down. The Corruptors no longer useless. Try and go for a little backstab with their own Corruptor... What is it called again? Not Contamination. Corruption. I think it's literally called Corruption. But I call it Corruptopus, so either one. But that was a hold. That was just barely a hold, but that was a hold. Reynor also with enough of a bank to totally remax. Now, not on the best possible units. It is mostly roaches, but that is still much bigger in army supply to SOS, who had built up a very expensive army and then lost the entirety of it. Not able to rebuild his own army fast enough. Stalkers also forced to chase the Corruptors around. We're on the front lines to help immediately. Now collecting together. You can see SOS will hold for now. But Reynor has at least reduced this back down to a more normal looking PTZ, where he is in the driver's seat. He is the one sharking around for an engagement. The Corruptors actually end up killing any of the buildings. Doesn't look like it, but they're keeping some Stalkers back. It's obviously a lot of supply in Corruptors, so that's only so much. But it is worth considering. SOS does need something more on the front lines. An almost 60 supply difference. Not a lot of heavy-hitting units, too. He lost some of those Immortals before the fight before this. Trying to keep away from the Lurkers, who do have both their upgrades, actually. More Lurkers being added in. Reynor sees an attack time. Attack timing that I think is going to work out for him. There just isn't quite enough for SOS. And even if there eventually is enough, he's already in a really poor position. You do not want to be on your own defense and your own chokes up against someone who has Lurkers. Going to try and bust out of this, but Immortal already down. Zealots kind of getting melted. Storms do manage to do some damage to some of these Lurkers, but it's not going to be enough. 5th base is still up for SOS and mining, but he has once again lost so many expensive units. That is... He's down to 8 Stalkers and 6 Zealots. Maybe a little disbelief as to how he lost this game. Seemingly so quickly. But Reynor did one thing... Well, he did a couple things well, but the thing that I really think is the difference maker is that when he held on this location, he didn't just give up. He didn't say, okay, well, let's just, like, smash together our armies and see what happens. All right, which is what I would do. But then I would lose. He said, okay, these are short T-Rex arm Archons. These are Storms that are going to be the most effective when they're finding clumped up armies. And then, you know, the Tempests are eventually going to be dealt with. And the Zealots, they'll get into nooks and crannies, but they'll also get sidetracked. And basically, by making sure not to just say, okay, fuck it, like, I'm just going to go for it, Reynor is able to buy time, not for more reinforcements only, but literally just to take better battles. As more Archons got split to the side. As more Zealots got distracted by like a couple of drones or something. He was able to take kind of smaller scale battles with what he had. And yeah, buy time for the reinforcements and for the Lurkers to create. But that was pretty much the most important thing there. Because if he had just given up and said, I guess, that the armies are going to go after each other, I'm pretty sure Reynor's army would have completely melted. And then SOS still would have had a really nice, you know, 60 supply of army or something all together on the front lines, methodically chopping down the hatcheries and killing all the reinforcements. SOS going on his last little hurrah here because he has lost his 4th and his 5th. He's kind of out of options. Lurkers are not at home, so that maybe gives him a glimpse of hope. There's only, oh no, there's 4, there's 5 Lurkers actually at home. That'll probably be enough. Not even gonna fight it. GG's. Reynor looked like he was in a ton of trouble and manages to hold on and commence the counter. Nicely done. GG's. Who is SOS? Wow. I feel old. SOS was a very, very good pro gamer. He's the only guy who won 2 BlizzCons. He won a, yeah, winner-take-all, $100,000 IEM. And, yeah, that's why it was $100,000, because it was a winner-take-all. He was very well known for being cheesy and, you know, all-ins, and definitely not a part of the mold. You know, he would like proxy Nexus. And that kind of sums him up, I guess. He was also a Brood War player, I believe. He was on Jin Air until they folded. You got a meme. And continuing on, and now up 1, in the top right, he is Reynor. In the bottom left, we do have SOS. StarCraft is so old, people have forgotten who SOS is. But he's pretty well liked. I mean, I like him a little less because he won a BlizzCon by defeating Jaedong, but that's fine. I'm totally over it. But it's kind of hard to hate this guy because when things got boring, he would be one of the more dependable persons to make it exciting. Not that last game, to be honest, but a lot of the other times, a lot of the other metas we've had. Because, you know, late game's EVP has been, I think, the most likely to be unexciting. If we average out all 15 years of StarCraft meta, pretty sure it's the most boring more often. And maybe one day that'll be fixed. But anyway, SOS would, not because he thought it was boring, or maybe because, I don't know, I'm not in his brain, but SOS would just look at a game and be like, you know what? Screw doing the normal thing. I'm going to do something really, really silly. And towards the end of his career, it looked more and more desperate. Well, he's still playing, so. By the end of his career before military, it looked more and more desperate rather than something of, you know, superhuman, super genius levels, but it was still a lot of fun. But during his peak, you know, I guess when he was on Engineer, for instance, you know, he had the great macro, the great micro, could kind of throw every now and again, because that's kind of what happens with these guys. So he wasn't, like, you know, strictly the most dependable, but he was freaking good. And he would just throw in crazy builds and make you rethink how Protoss worked. And he has, he has balls of steel. He won a $100,000 winner-take-all tournament where the winner took $100,000. The loser, the second place, would get nothing. Nada. Zero. Although, to reveal something, I think what I heard was that they actually agreed beforehand to split the money. So I don't know if he actually got away with $100,000. But that still means that, like, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all the people who usually get some amount of prize money got nothing. And it was IEM's attempt to shake things up and be exciting. Personally, I didn't like it back then, and not just because the person I wanted to win didn't win. But it just, I don't know. It didn't feel like it was going to really draw in a bunch of attention. I mean, maybe it did for that particular time, but the amount of screwed over that the rest of the pro gamers felt for a 4-day event, I don't know if it was worth it. A Hero SOS asked here if you want to split, and Hero denied. Maybe that's what it was, yeah. Well, that's on Hero then. Anyway. Void Ray is coming out once again. And 2 gases are coming out as well. This time around, Reynor intentionally scouts with the Overlord. This is really just, like I said last game, most Zergs wouldn't bother doing this. They'd see the Oracle either pass by the Overlord or pass into their main and be like, oh, another Oracle, huh. Like, that's all they really would depend on scouting a lot of the time. And in this case, he sends it before the Void Ray is out, so he gets that confirmation on 4 gases. Now that he's really 100% totally, definitely scouted 4 gases, and it's going to be the same thing as last game, does Reynor change what he does? Again, it's still that dilemma that I was talking about. you can't just see this and go, I'm going to all in you and you're going to lose. That's not how it works, unfortunately. If Zerg had Marines, then that's 100% how it would work, because you could shoot up. But you don't. So, you know, there are some builds that bring queens along, right? Like a German taxi or something, right? Sure. But even that's very difficult to say would work against someone who is going to get into Tempest so quickly, just because that range is really annoying. And SOS, if he gets a hint of what is going on, could, you know, wall and wall and wall and wall, and then the queens would be all by their lonesome, and yeah, I don't know if it would work. So I don't know what Reynor's going to try and do to nip this in the bud, but I would imagine that is his preference. He knows that he was dangerously close to losing last game. He was probably frustrated to have to play that game in general, considering, I guess, what I know about the guy, as well as what we're hearing from the other Zerg players. So nipping in the bud would be way better. But this is not just Tempests. SOS, knowing he was scouted, but maybe planning this anyway, because it's different, right? Like, the Void Array might have been the scout. The Void Array might have been the nod. And so you just throw the Void Array and do something else. Like, that has happened in plenty of other games. The Fleet Beacon did still come down, though, so we know that it is somewhat intention to be Tempest eventually. But the Twilight Council actually came down as well. Resident Glaives is on the way. Reynor, if he's thinking totally and entirely about killing Tempests, is not going to have a ground army. Because this game, he didn't need... Well, no, he did actually get a Roshorn. Okay, but he's not going to get any army. So like last game, he's not going to get any ground army. But right now, he sees literally one Tempest. This is one Tempest for much longer than what he saw in the previous game. Unfortunately, he's still not quite picking up on what's being put down right now. Not until this very second. Creep's Tumor sees it. Thank God for the creep spread. Otherwise, the Adepts would 100% be through. They are still through, but their shade isn't through on top of the drones already, and that is a big difference. Not a lot of army here, but the Adepts taking the fight, are not killing the drones, giving time for the queens to even add in their own damage, for the lings to try and sacrifice for the greater good, and for the roaches to actually pop out. Reynor was losing drones to the Tempest. Now he is losing drones to the Adepts, but he had been droning almost entirely for all that time, waiting for the Spire to finish. So he actually had a lot of drones to give to a certain amount anyway. Adepts are almost out of juice. Killing 18 drones is pretty good. Reynor is remaking them as I'm speaking. Tempest has been forgotten about by the looks of things. SOS did get the Fleet Beacon for literally one Tempest, and he will not be making any more in this game. Going on to Blink and +1. Very interesting pivot. The Spire feels a little sad at this point to make 200 Spire just for one Tempest. But SOS is a tricky guy. It'd be very difficult for Reynor to play this any better with the information he could gather. I mean, you might be thinking, why didn't he just go for Overlord speed? But even if he had, I mean, I don't think it would have been in time to actually scout. It'd be exceptionally early. And then that does take away some important resources in the early game. If there wasn't a downside to getting Overlord speed in every single game, people would get it every single game. Well, unfortunately for Reynor, I think what's most unfortunate for him is not the amount of drones that he lost, although that combines with this. It's just, at the end of the day, this means that he does have to face SOS, with SOS once again leading, whereas Reynor may have wanted to be the one to make the decisions, right? In this case, he is the one on the defense. Yeah, there are destructible rocks here. Reynor remembers that. And while it's going to take him a little while longer to actually kill those rocks, he does get around to it. Buying that time to get more reinforcements as well as those Ravagers. SOS has +1 attack on his Blink Stalkers. Reynor has +1 missile on his Roaches. Was trying to take a fourth base to the left. Was denied by the Void right now. Trying to take it to the right. Stalkers do not get the cancel there. And Reynor definitely getting to the point where the Roach... The Stalkers don't beat the Roaches. You know, the Stalker micro with Blink can be so powerful that you know, you do expect to take on the Roach Ravager for a certain amount of time. But SOS is going to have to be a little careful. Reynor did not go for any decent amount of lings, so there's no fear of being surrounded, so he should always be able to retreat. He's got a proxy gateway in the middle of the map, too, so he's reinforcing rather quickly. Fourth base coming up for SOS, getting charge and double upgrades, actually. Reynor goes for literally one muta. Uno muta. I'm not sure why, but he does. Focus fire there from the Stalkers on the Ravagers, the most expensive unit that he can get to. Reynor's Lings decide that they'd be best used elsewhere. Going after that fourth base and dragging the army back. SOS's pylon not quite done. Reinforcements are coming in, and they're actually even... That's actually a really nice warp in. So they stop the Lings from getting a totally full surround. Nonetheless, still having to cancel that Nexus. The Zealots will be used later down the line to probably go for run-bys. We are getting a little bit of that... I guess at this point, kind of old school, you know? But, you know, when Hero came back from military, what he showed us could be done. We're getting these double upgraded, faster expansions, ideally. Just pure ground force. Reynor was obviously playing during that meta, so he's familiar with it. But it might be a while since he last played it. Trying to get the Infestation Pit, +1 melee. Hydras are on the way as well, though not Lurkers. SOS is setting up those Zealots for that run-by that I was talking about. And the fourth base is back on the way. One Muta! Been killed by one cannon. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what happened there. A Muta is T, is it? What else would he have hidden? I don't know. Maybe it was supposed to be a scout. A fairly expensive scout. I assume it's a misclick. It could be a last-second change of decision. Seeing that many Stalkers being aggressive is not the time to try and go Mutalisk. So. Could have been that, too. Lurker down on the way alongside the Hive. This is... Lurkers... don't have to be what totally stops this mass gateway style, but it oftentimes is. You know, we'll see a couple of games, or we saw past tense couple of games where, you know, Hero versus Solar. Solar would try so many different things, try and combat this, and lose every time 3 years ago. But one of the things he tried was Lurkers. And then the question was more, what was less do you get to Lurkers, and more how much you have by the time you get to Lurkers. You know, if you have 5 Lurkers and 5 Roaches, then that doesn't count. So that's the question that we're going to be asking literally right now, is Reynor is forced to defend. Unfortunately, not a great start for him. He didn't realize that SOS was ready to go in, so he did not pull away from those storms very quickly at all. Already losing so much army. Fortunately, built up a bank, and he is replacing it, but he's going to lose that 4th hatch. 5th hatch, going to be ignored. Okay. Should also be canceled. Okay. The Zealots are still going to waste their lives trying to get into the natural. Oh well. So that means the 4th base of Reynor is still available. She's going to play Whack-A-Mole Zerg. And Reynor is barely making the ends meet here. Just there haven't been a lot of engagements, I suppose, so he has been able to max out and accumulate that supply, despite being at a resource loss deficit. Now he's going to go into much better trading units. These Lurkers are going to be far more cost efficient and, well, just frankly, far scarier. SOS is going to have a little more trouble just attacking directly into this choke, into the Lurkers. So he could try and split up his army while the Lurker count is low and they can't be used to just guard. But eventually, that's also what the Lurkers will be good for. They will, you know, have maybe a Spore up just in case DTs arrive, and, you know, then no Zealot run by will have a huge potential. And we're actually almost near that Lurker count already. Despite Reynor having trouble getting a consistent income, or at least it felt that way, he's actually doing fine. 8 Lurkers, about to become 11. They got 2-1 upgrades against SOS's 2-2, +3 attack almost done for the Protoss. 4 bases has been comfortable for SOS so far, but he probably wants to think about a 5th soon. Right now, he's got to think about this Roach run-by. Reynor not just trying to get something done on SOS's side of the map, but he's also giving away those less useful units. in a good exchange. And is also forcing SOS to retreat. He's got a recall. He wants to retreat, but then he's like, okay, but I don't really want to let you come to my side of the map with lurkers, so I'm going to leave some of my army, but then I got to be really careful because if you pounce on me and I'm not paying attention, then our army's going to die too. And this is just making SOS having a much harder time. What the freak is... Why is there one corruptor? Who put that there? Was that the original one corruptor? No. That was a second corruptor that was made. What? Don't know when that happened. Don't know why it happened, but it's over now. Roaches have been sacrificed and now replaced with a couple more drones as well as bigger and better units. More roaches looking to be replaced, attacking into this fourth, which is pretty well defended. I'm not sure they'll be as efficient. But again, SOS also, I think, let's start thinking about that fifth base. Mining out of his main and natural. Third also losing out in the mineral count. Oh yeah, these roaches are pretty useless. Not what Reynor intended. Was maybe looking to set up something else alongside it. I just mistimed. A lot of zealots waiting to head into that fourth or fifth now, I suppose. But the lurkers are there. The Sim City is there as well. And this will just be less effective. This might mean there's an opportunity for the whole army of SOS to tackle the lurker army. But not in that... No, not like this. Not like what the... This is so inefficient from SOS. That was a choke, first of all. Second of all, there was the fear of the spores killing the observer, which barely didn't happen, but still. SOS could have at least broken these rocks before trying that. But I don't think he realized maybe how close the rest of the army was, or just how many lurkers were actually there. That's... because he can't have thought that was going to work otherwise. Well, that really sucks for SOS. Not just because that was completely inefficient, but because he has now opened up the floodgates. He has told Reynor, I no longer have a gigantic ground army controlling your movements, so that whenever you pick up your lurkers, I'll jump on it. No, he's saying, oh, please... bring your lurkers over to my side of the map and kill me. Because whether I'm remaking a ground army or an air army, that's going to take a while, and you're going to get into all types of nasty positions, and I'm going to die. Of course, Reynor takes the opportunity. Now, SOS is almost maxed out again, as you can see. He had some bank. He knew that there would be some inefficient trades with the current situation that he had, and he was probably hoping to trade a little, replace with air. Trade a little, replace with air or immortals, and, you know, better units. But he lost everything all at once, and that's just the worst thing you can do. Bucks coming in as the High Templars haven't really been able to help out in the third as much. The lurker count is so high at 19. Good lord. The only thing you could hope for is that the air army pops out and eventually starts taking care of this. There aren't that many Hydras, so, you know, the Vipers, even if they abduct the air, might not be able to kill it, but it just isn't enough yet. Zealot's trying to buy some time. Do run past the lurkers on the 5th, and there is an opportunity in the natural. We got ourselves a good old-fashioned base race by the looks of things. That is SOS's real only plan here. His only option. Nidus Worm's coming down. That's interesting. I guess probably not for the base race, of course, but it might help out in the base race. Lurkers trying to divvy themselves up, trying to attack as many places at once could be a weakness. But it also is just so damn difficult to track the lurkers. You're going to need an observer every which way that they go, and that's what makes it dangerous. Because honestly, these lurkers divvying themselves up could be bad for them. But only if SOS could track them all. SOS down in supply, but he has managed to get into the main base of Reynor. He's now got the high ground and the choke to work with. Also got a cloak, but we do have an overseer. Time warp on the ramp is pretty nasty, but it's only a time buying maneuver. Do we have a Nexus recall? I think we're going to need it. Either we don't have it or we don't think we need it. Okay, we do have it, but that's too late. That is far too late. SOS, you know, obviously in a very, very tough game, not making the absolute right decisions at absolutely right time. Can't blame him. But that was more and more of his army dead, and Reynor still has plenty of army left over. It's going to be the death push. The air army now has Corruptors to contend with, so that's no longer the Hail Mary that SOS needed. And here comes the swarm. The swarm! Oh! Got a Blinding Cloud even. I listed all of these spells earlier on. Totally forgot that one. The Vipers were destroyed, I guess, in that engagement. But that's okay. SOS is about to be on no mining bases. His 5th killed, his 4th very oversaturated, although currently healthy. Not for long. Reynor, I guess his Spire was targeted at some point. So he is going to have to replace that just in case there's more air army than he thinks. So many probes. So many probes. This is SOS's last chance in the GSL after all. This is the lower bracket. And he had to give it his all, but that is game, set, match, so on and so forth. Reynor will get the win, and he will go on to face Solar in a rematch. Okie dokie. In the bottom left of Tokamak, we got Reynor. And in the top right, we do have Sola. This is a rematch. This is the final match of the day. Best of 3 to determine who advances in the GSL and who is out and has to try again in Season 2. In the last best of 3 they played, Solar was able to win it 2-1. And it was full of all-ins. Yeah. I expect something similar here. I didn't say it, and now it seems like I'm making it up. But I did want to pin Solar as the favorite for the first CVC of the day. I think he's pretty damn solid. There's nothing wrong with Reynor's CVC either, though. I think I'm just thinking of a lot of past GSLs where Solar played some good ZVZ or the Foreigners lost to Korean ZVZ. I think that's just like all kind of all coming together in my brain. Because I actually don't know what their head-to-head is. And I don't know what their statistics are, how good they are in ZVZ. Although I imagine those statistics would be... There'd be a low sample size, right? So like, I don't know how much I'd even pin on that. If Solar's like 75% win rate and Reynor's 60, I don't even know if I would care. But yeah, as far as the history goes, it feels like Solar has knocked some hopefuls out, and ZVZ has been a culprit for Reynor more, but I might be totally misremembering. It's been a while. We had an 8-month gap of GSLs, and before that, honestly, there's just so much StarCraft. Even though I cast every single GSL replay that was released. But anyway, alongside it being 8 months ago on that topic, it's also just, it has been so long from seeing all of these players really play at their absolute peak form. Reynor especially. Solar actually does play in a decent amount of the online tournaments. Reynor's a little less so. So it's really up in the air. And just because 2-1 happened in the first series doesn't mean it's going to happen again in the second. Or that it's going to favor Solar. So far, typical stuff. Third hatch on the way for both players. Look at that precise timing. Look at how identical it is. Oh, not identical actually. It was going to be, and the Reynor had to ruin it. He got drones first instead of hatchery. I wonder if that's actually better though. Kind of feels like it would be better, wouldn't it? Drones actually mining a little bit quicker. The third hatch won't actually have any drones on it for a while. Man, is EDC expert. I ain't no Zerg. Banliness for both parties has come in handy defensively. And we did even have Reynor attempt one Ling attack. You know, swell of Lings, not necessarily an all-in. That's the game that he lost game 2. And didn't actually include Banling, so more often for the defense. trying to stand more to be healthy and stuff. But, oh, I'm so unhealthy. Standing sucks. I'm gonna lean. When I was in Japan, I actually realized at some point the thing about Americans that I've heard. Apparently Americans lean on stuff more than other people. And, I mean, I wouldn't not believe that. I don't know. I haven't paid attention. But I was paying attention in Japan just all of a sudden because we were waiting at the crosswalk and I leaned on like a metal gate, you know, thing for the cars. And I was like, wow, I'm the only person leaning. We do lean a lot. That's weird. Shower thoughts, I suppose. Yeah, maybe leaning. Both players are getting a Roach Warren, but only one player... Oh, no, sorry. That's not a... Well... Both players are getting a Roach Warren. One person is getting a much faster Evolution Chamber because they're getting it at all. Solar is not going for an Evolution Chamber. He's getting some Overlords. And he does have a lot of supplies, so he's going to build a lot of Roaches, actually. Going for a lot of Roaches here. Reynor is going to need to figure this out somehow. Currently, he is building his own army, though. So this is actually already a very good sign. So, whether he figured it out or he's just, you know, doing the right thing at the right time. Only 5 drones up. Totally capable of defending anything Solar's going to throw at him. Solar does have a higher army supply and might be throwing it across the map, but it really doesn't look like it's going to work. You'd be better off going back into droning, and that's actually what he is doing. But he's already fallen behind, and even though he is going to catch up very soon, we do see that the blue here, Reynor's income, is kind of spiking. That's why edgy protagonist archetype is shown leaning, to emphasize rude defiance of convention. Oh man, I think you're onto something. All the bad boys and like animes, they all lean a lot, you're right. Oh my god. But it's so weird because like, how is leaning rude? How is it defying anything? It's just to be comfortable. Why can't I just be comfortable? Anyway. There is no lair on the way for Solar. There is still no Evolution Chamber on the way for Solar. He is absolutely going to all in. And Reynor is going to need to start making army now. Busted out a couple more drones. Has a lair on the way. This lair will not help him in the defense. The drones might actually. But 2 more drones, like we're kind of eking to that point. We're just like a little more concerned every single time. But roaches are also on the way. +1 will be done. And a couple of spine crawlers are also even on the way. So Reynor has detected this and is trying his best to defend. But he does have 12 more drones than his opponent. That is going to hurt his overall army supply. Hopefully the defense advantage can kick in for him. For Solar, hoping this is going to work out. Got a nice concave for both players. Reynor able to stop those lings from any type of surround. Banelings of Solar not quite able to impact the fight yet. And while they're usually not good against roaches, of course, any amount of splash damage is useful. They are good against structures, and they do help clear out that spine crawler. But that's a very limited number of units there for Solar left over. He's trying to flood with lings at this point, but the roaches and ravagers are going down. Reynor barely able to hold, but was just able to. And with this hold, he straight up just has more units on the field than his opponent, or at least on the front lines. He won't be vulnerable to being surrounded, not nearly as much as the previous game these guys played. Because at this point, even if the Lings surround that +1 missile, they're going down really fast, and there's nothing to take advantage of a Ling surround. Solar recognizes that. He backs away. He's going to try and macro out of this, but I don't think that's going to be possible. Reynor didn't even have to pull the drones to hold on to that. He's still at 59 drones. So he's going to see with his Overlord, the army pull back. He's probably going to try and get a check on whether there's more army being produced or a couple of drones being produced. As you do see right now, he's building a spine crawler. Reynor is a little hesitant, I guess. Like, is he going to continue all-inning me? Looks like he had canceled his lair for that too, which is probably a good call. Rebuilding it, but now it is equally timed with Solar's. He still has that +1 missile. He still has that blue line on the income graph showing that he is favored here. Solar's going to try and get as many drones as possible before probably going back into army. He knows that he needs to catch up to Reynor at whatever drones he probably would have been at. And then maybe even go over a little more. Like, how he wants to play this, I guess. But that would be extremely risky. It's also the gamble that he has to make. Solar gambled with the all-in, didn't work. And now he has to gamble with, like, severe droning or You know, he can't. If he just makes more army, he's going to lose over time, right? So that's the one thing you don't really want to do. So either make a lot of drones, get to that perfect drone count, then make the army, and or add on this technology, which is the choice. The Spire is on the way in the back of the natural. Reynor, it's going to be denied seeing that, actually. Yeah. So, you know, it would make sense. I heard a changeling. Did he actually? No, okay. He doesn't know about the Spire, but it looks like Reynor's going to attack anyway. No particular timing on the attack, but he might just feel that this is a good time. Or he actually probably just saw the army, honestly. He's like, oh, that army's not good enough. I'm going to attack you. It's not maxed out. The upgrades weren't going to finish, but he saw a weak army, and he went for it, and that is Reynor winning game 1. Sick of standing. Game 2 is going to be on Maganatha. In the top left, it is Solar. In the bottom right, it is Reynor. Oh, we got something very different. Oh, boy. Solar. Gonna go for some cheese. No one's taking a picture of him, but he's going to say cheese anyway. Reynor is going to go for a more normal build, and that is, well, you know, a little scary. Most holds against pool first, like early pool first, although this is pool and gas. You know, they do happen with the other Zerg player going for a hatch first. You know, obviously it's easier if you didn't, but I would say a lot of the circumstances with the ZVZ, you know, the expectation is that hatch first into pool or gas pool, and then you're trying to kill that. But we see people hold against it all the time. It is more difficult, and it would be nice if Reynor wasn't doing this, but that's what, you know, it's the gamble of every ZVZ. Solar, totally dedicated to this. He is going to go into that speed. I mean, I guess he could have brought a Spine Crawler or gotten a Baneling Nest too, so maybe it's not the most dedicated, but it is going to be very early pressure. Eventually, speed will kick in. And then that's going to cause a whole other set of problems if Reynor even survives the first Ling attack. We're simply waiting for these Lings to appear, circumventing the Overlord scouts of Reynor.
Warning. Philanthropist programs detected in comm server 04.
Thank you very much, Dead Hand, for the 5 gifted subs. As we now get the Lings showing themselves. Reynor pulls away immediately. No use to keep those drones down there. Now, he is eventually going to confirm what build it is. You can pull the drones and try and hold on to your hatchery. I'm not sure this is going to work, though. That doesn't seem like enough drones. Or enough Lings, or both. And then speed also kicks in, meaning that Solar can get a far easier surround. Yeah, so Reynor, that kind of looked like he was going to give up on the hatchery, and thought, like, well, maybe, because the queen's going to pop out, maybe I can hold it. And then he, of course, had to give up on the hatchery anyway. Because he already was building a Baneling Nest. So his best hope is to macro out of this, actually. If he had speed himself, then counter-attacking might be an option, and he would have the Baneling technology. But without speed, there's really no counter-attack. So the only option for Reynor is to rebuild that hatchery, bring a Spine Crawler down, and then the Banelings will protect him from further Ling aggression. That is pure Ling anyway. But Solar is going to get all this time to build up the drones, knowing that he has map control, so he can just build drones, doesn't have to worry about the counterattack. And then obviously he's going to have better saturation, because he actually has a natural hatchery. Reynor, on the other hand, has to be a little concerned about everything. So he has to be concerned that Solar is macroing, is building a lot of drones. And he has to be concerned that Solar could be building a lot more Lings and holding them up somewhere and trying to just outnumber the Banelings, you know, and out-micro the Banelings. That's less likely. This is a pretty solid setup now. Reynor with a Baneling or two, a Spine Crawler, a Queen. You know, pretty unlikely that Solar would try and bust this, but what you got to consider. Solar's not going to have to move his lings anytime soon. Although, well, speed is finishing, so I take that back. Solar is going to have to move his lings. Tries to get a last-second scout. Spinecrawler should take this out. Yep. So that ling was never going to get very far into the base, but wouldn't have had to. There is an evolution chamber right on the front. That would have given him some information. These two lings will definitely see that. I mean, the upgrade was nowhere near completion anyway, so there was a bit of time where Solar could get a scout, and he got one very early on. Certainly not for missile. The Carapace, even though you might know it's on the way, again, it's nowhere close. Let's say Carapace and Ling versus Ling lets you actually tank one Baneling to the face. Still severely injures your Lings, though. But it also will contribute to a Roach push. Roaches also benefit from it. And we can see that combo a little later down the line. Currently, Solar, forced to take a threat of a Ling Baneling attack seriously. Has to make a couple of his own Banelings. A little ring around the rosy. Nicely done by Reynor to save that Baneling. But more scouts coming in. It's going to see the third hatch is... actually, Solar's Overlord's not quite in position. Doesn't fix that yet with all the APMs he's had to use. Roachworn done for Solar as he grabs his own third hatch. Roachworn down for Reynor. He's already at 42 drones, and the +1 Carapace is almost done, so this is where he's going to bust out those roaches. 2 Overlords could be picked off if the Queen's allowed to get away with it, but she might need a help. Hatchery is completed for Reynor. Now the object is to keep it alive. This is very dangerous. The roaches will have to reveal themselves to help out with the hatchery. I mean, I guess he's all-inning anyway, basically. And while the hatchery alive means that there's some wiggle room, if he attacks and kills 5 drones and then backs away and he has a third hatch, I guess that kind of does equalize things. Yeah, with the third hatch actually dead, that is no longer as realistic of an option. Solar is able to get the hatchery and escape with a lot of lings, which will be helpful in the upcoming attack, even though they're not, usually the most important thing in Reynor's attack. I mean, it already is kind of... Yeah, it's already lackluster. Solar has had plenty of time to respond. Solar basically got away with everything right there. He killed the hatchery, he saved his units, and he got, well, I guess enough units to defend, not only defend, though, also attack his opponent. So he's just gotten everything he wanted to, which is not droning, to be specific. Solar is not building drones. Reynor is at 51 drones, still no third hatch. Solar's at 39. Reynor's going to have some trouble here. I think he knows it's on the way, seeing the lack of drones or just the amount of army at the front. And he is trying to build up his own. Spinecrawlers have to be made as well. He does have this upgrade. So there's a chance for a hold, but it's a 30 army supply difference. One spine's done. 2 are on the way. One of them's going to have to be canceled, killed. Second Spinecrawler done. Willing to give up his third hatch yet again. Or just having to give up his third hatch. Reynor builds a second Roachworn? I'm not sure that's what he meant to build. I hope he doesn't think it's a Spire that's on the way. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe Reynor still loses no matter what. So the spines have been broken. The Queen's desperately running away. Drones pulled into the fight. Solar just simply had too much. Even this Corrosive Bile's hitting now in the limited micro room for Reynor. Yeah, that's Solar's game. Maybe he thought the Roachworn would be picked at, that Solar wouldn't actually pull the trigger, which, it does go down, so. I guess that is just a backup Roachworn. But as I said, it doesn't matter whether it was or wasn't. It's not particularly helpful when you're down a hatchery and 11 drones, although you do have a 2 upgrader advantage. That's usually pretty damn significant. And why Reynor probably has not tapped out of the game. These lings are going to cause some problems with the mining, but they're also going to get a scout. There is one thing that could have been built, and that is a Spire that would cause Solar some problems He has entirely withdrawn, and if Aspire was finished and even 5 mutas were on the way, you know, that does complicate matters. I don't think it necessarily puts Reynor in a good position, but it would complicate things. He'd have to worry about his overlords dying. He'd have to, you know, worry about really attacking across the map, even though 5 mutas don't do a lot of damage. You still don't want all that free damage on your roaches. But it's not, so he has nothing to worry about. This is a very direct game. Wow! Esports Makeup! Thank you very much for the 5 gifted subs. Long time no see. I feel like this Overseer from Reynor is just confirming how screwed he is. Reynor hoping that upgrades will help him a lot. Hey, Banelings collects 9 drones. That is not bad. All these things are beautiful. If he wasn't already so damn behind. Yeah, GG. GG. Solar will strike back. Is this how it happened last time? It was Reynor 1, Solar 1, and then Solar 2-1? And now the final game of GSL Group A. On ley lines, we got Reynor in the top right and Solar in the bottom left. So I think this is how it went down in the first series. Reynor won the first, then Solar won the next 2. See if that trend continues. There is this idea that there is a curse on the rematch for GSL, which I honestly am a believer. Not in curses, but just it makes sense. After an initial match, initial series, maybe one person didn't quite warm up or didn't remember how the other guy played or whatever other reason, I suppose. And then, you know, was able to come back. And that makes a lot of sense when you consider 2 people are pretty closely matched. If one person really is just better, then no, they're not going to win the second rematch. But I think in this case, you know, they are very closely matched. And all the curse could be in effect. But I mean, I certainly don't recall the exact details of all the builds they did in the first series. I don't know how much you can try to continue reading into it. Maybe if Reynor thought Solar was going to be more of a macro guy, now he's like, okay, no, he's just as likely to all-in me. But I don't think that would have been his first thought anyway. It's ZVZ. And everyone cheeses. Everyone all-ins. So, I'm not going to say it's down to luck, but I don't know. May the best man win. They're very, very close, obviously. Bringing it to game 3 both times, but only one person can advance to the next run of the GSL. And the other one will have to try in Season 2, which will be happening pretty damn soon. They're trying to get both seasons done before EWC, because the winner of both GSLs goes to EWC. A very typical start for both players. Confirmations on the hatcheries go down, and they bring the Overlord back. Pet the kitty? So far away, though. What the hell are you doing? Dimitri's not in a mood to be pet right now. That's his polite way of saying no thank you. Before I started stream, I pet him and he was, you know, pushing against my hand, but now he's politely saying no thank you. Cats, am I right? Third hatch for both players now. I am a little surprised at a 6 ZVZs. We haven't seen someone trying 2 base. Again, I'm really not sure what the meta is. Obviously, some of these maps are perfectly capable of walling off the natural fairly quickly as well. So, I guess if I had seen 6 ZVZs coming, I would have guessed 1 would have been 2 base, Roach Warren, Evolution Chamber on the front, and then any amount of shenanigans that happen behind that. Just because it starts off that way doesn't mean that's actually what happens, but that's kind of the point and why it can be a clever addition to a best of 3. Solar just seconds later to the Roach Warren. They're both doing about as standard of a ZVZ build as you can get. Didn't mean to let that Baneling explode. Gonna have to replace it. Evolution Chamber for Reynor. It does seem to be more prone to getting this Evolution Chamber, as Solar likes to threaten an attack. It does have room for roaches, but drones are coming out. Reynor does want to see it. And it is being put down. Oh, or should be. Uh-oh. Okay, he does notice. Okay. It's a little worried he wouldn't notice, and then it would be very, very late. The Solar moved out with a handful of lings. Reynor had to respect that. Reynor still hasn't seen it. It was canceled anyway. Oh, oh, maybe he was just worried about an attack. Maybe he's just worried about lings coming in. Okay, now he's just let his... Okay, okay, I see. Oh, it didn't work, though! Oh, no! Oh, so he was trying to get a ling block, I think is what happened, so that the scout couldn't come in. And then he just put his queen and some lings on hold position. But the ling just got through as if there was nothing there anyway. So a full scout went down. I mean, that scout, you know, it revealed not terribly much. Which, another cancel? I guess he doesn't like where... I don't even know. I don't know. Something about the Sim City for that one, for sure. But I was trying to say, Reynor didn't actually get to see, like, a layer timing or, you know, any hidden technology, because there isn't any. But that's kind of a scout in itself, of course. More scouting coming down with this ling run by once again. That just goes in and goes right back out. Did not see the lair. You know, if you see a lair in Evolution Chamber, that does tell you they're not going to attack, I guess, that soon. I thought this might actually be a bit of a macro game. I think he did. I think that would have been too close for roaches. It was like here, I guess, or here, or something like that. I mean, that must be why he did it the second or third time, or however many times he canceled that. We got roaches and lings on the way. So Solar getting a lot of things that shot a macro game, including even Overlord speed. Reynor did not go for it. I'm paying a lot of attention to Reynor scouting. Let's check out Solar's. Not much, not much. You saw an Evolution Chamber in the back. And as I had said, Reynor had been more prone to going for the upgrade, even if that upgrade was for an eventual all-in still. So that must be what Solar was thinking. Solar now trying to defend, trying to get enough units. He is 14 drones above his opponent, however. That is pretty nasty. Ravagers were created in the nick of time, but they don't have a lot of protection. They will be vulnerable. Corrosive Biles trying to buy some time. Collide with only a couple of those roaches. Ling's not getting us around. Reynor, he sees the opportunity. He's going to go for it. Spinecrawler is finishing, but perhaps a little bit too late. Corrosive Biles once again trying to hit something juicy, but a good split from Reynor. And this looks like game over. There's so many roaches here for Reynor. Solar just did not realize what was on the way. And that's all it takes. Reynor will clutch out GSL advancement. And Solar gets all these upgrades that are going to finish. They're just not completely useless. He will be knocked out of his hometown tournament. There are many other ways that people can advance the EWC, worth noting, as if your favorite player lost today. It's not just the GSL that's providing spots. There will also be online qualifiers, one of which is Korea only, and one of which is totally global. So, and we might see some players go to Dallas as well. But yes, Solar is knocked out of the GSL, and Reynor will advance. GG's to Reynor and Cure.